Answer in the comment section, in the chat box section on YouTube, so we can get a feel or a sense of what people think at the moment. Do you think it's possible? Well, tonight we hope to answer that question, and beyond that, we hope to challenge you to understanding how important it is and also that it is very possible. And to encourage us this evening, we have a lineup of distinguished speakers, captains of industry, men and women who have distinguished themselves in businesses, doing it without compromising their values and principles. We'll be asking them how, why, practicalities of making it work, and hopefully learning from it as well. As part of the 7,000, as we urge you to be a number, what we challenge you to think is that it is possible. If we must change the face of our nation, and by nation I mean whatever nation you represent, if we must carry the mark of our Lord Jesus, then we must do things right. And it is possible to do it right. And so we'll be hearing stories tonight, as we've called this a night of storytelling. It's not just going to be speaking to you, telling you the specifics or the textbook answers to this question, but actually sharing real life experiences, and you have an opportunity to ask questions as well. So we welcome you once again very warmly and ask you to come along with us on this journey. We'll be speaking to Dr. Cosmas Maduka, who's been giving us the keynote address. And then we also have speakers such as Mrs. Morenike Mbolain, Mr. Lolo Akinwumi, and famous T.Y. Bello. We also have lined up for some music to hopefully speak to our minds and spirit. And it will be brought to us by the one and only Nosa. So sit back, tighten or fasten your seatbelt. It's a ride that we hope and pray will be transformational indeed. And so, ladies and gentlemen, if you know there's someone who ought to be here right now, who ought to be watching, and they're not quite represented, quick, send them the link and let them be a part of tonight's conversation. Also, if you hear any gems throughout tonight, or someone says something that resonates very deeply with you, kindly share. Sharing is caring. So go onto our social media platforms, tag us at the Alternative Business School and Esther Longe, and share your gems with us using the hashtag Doing Business with Integrity and the 7,000 Conference. I'll say no more because we want to delve straight into the conversation. Our first speaker, who happens to be our keynote speaker for today, is a man whose story will push you. It will inspire you. It will challenge you. And hopefully it will motivate you to make the right decision. He is a Nigerian businessman and philanthropist, the founder, president, and chairman of the Koscharis Group, an indigenous combination with assorted interest in manufacturing, ICT, petrochemical, auto consideration, and auto components, automobile sales and services, agri and agro-allied business areas. He's popular for Koscharis Motors, a vehicle deals and servicing organization, notwithstanding different brands of vehicles, for example, Range Rover, Ford, and Jaguar. He is the sole wholesaler of BMW in Nigeria. With such a rich pedigree, I'm sure you'd agree with me that this is a story worth listening to. And so, ladies and gentlemen, please let's make very welcome in the comment section, Dr. Cosmas Maduka, CON.
God bless you, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, and my audience. It's really an honor and a real privilege for me to be here this evening with you. This very important occasion of discussing with the group 7,000 men and women that are living a life of righteousness and seeking to be able to do something for the kingdom of God. My invitation is very simple, and I'll try to be snappy because I have a limited time. The title of this theme is Doing Business with Integrity. When my son-in-law, Dr. McFord, wanted me to be here this evening, he shared a story with me about Dr. Esther, how passionate she's been with this subject, and maybe we're going to also hear her testimony this evening, so I don't want to take time to dive into it. But just to let you know that a lot of thought goes through the mind of the young people, whether it is really possible to do business with integrity in the hour and time that we are living in. It's not strange. We've seen things like this even in the Bible days. During the time of Elijah, it appeared that everybody has compromised and lived like the rest of the world. But, God has never left himself without a witness in every generation and every dispensation. There are very few minor group that stood out, that's really without a witness in every generation and every dispensation. There are very few minor group that always stand out for what is right, regardless of the challenges that goes with it. It got to a point that actually Elijah indeed thought it was himself alone. And he made a claim like some of us do, and we do, like, it's only me. There's no other person. It was at that point that God gave him a revelation, and he saw there are 7,000 other men and women that never bowed to the bar, It's almost like, forget it. Why do we just want to get into this theory? How do you do business, in Nigeria of today, in the hour of today, with integrity? This is like a cock and bull story, Some people will call it bullshit and different kind of things. But I stand here to testify to you that it's still possible and it can be done. God never left himself without a witness. There's always very few group that can stand out and be able to give account of what they are doing and what they have done. By the grace of God, when we talk about integrity, let me be very honest, I won't say it's so much about the things I learned in the church, even though church is supposed to own it, and it's supposed to be really what anybody who claimed to be a Christian stood out for. Let us first of all define the word integrity. What do we mean when we talk about integrity? Because many of us only look at it with relates to finance and other things. Integrity should be your first nature, the way you live. And you can make a note on this. Many people think they can't get anywhere with integrity, but let me tell you, a shortcut is the longest way, the farthest way to success in life. Anytime you think you can cut things short and get there closer, you are making it extremely difficult for you to ultimately get to where you want to be in life. The successful people play by one rule. We are confused because we've seen a bunch of criminals in our own environment that rose up to power and authority. But these are very momentary. They are short-lived. It's not something that has been tested. You can't really create wealth that is successful because it's going to catch up with you somewhere along the road if you don't get it right. Like I said, Christianity should have been in the front run of this, that should be the really champion of it, because God, the word God is actually represent integrity. It's a character. In the afternoon, one is one. In Japan, in Nigeria, anywhere in the world, A is A, B is B. It never changes. It's not changed by weather, by time. It's very consistent. So integrity is something you will do when you find out it can never be discovered and you still do the same thing. It's not about somebody, making a clip or video on you and you are programming you and you are trying to fit into that person's program and making sure you do things that, nobody will hear it. Every other person will be good when people are going to see what you've done. But if we talk about integrity, it's something you are certain nobody will discover it. But still, you never change your mind. You do what is right in a consistent manner. Not your best, because many times our best is not good enough. Our call as Christians are a higher calling. We must do what is required, not our best, because an average human being feel inadequate, have reasons to feel I can't go further than this. This is my best. Forgetting that Henry Ford already told us that no single person is incapable of doing more than what he or she has to do. But many times we wait to get a desperate situation to get the best out of us, when love should have appropriated us to do that. At the age of 14, I became a Christian and met the person of Jesus Christ in his saving grace and embraced him. I went to speak somewhere last Sunday, and a bishop trying to introduce me, was saying he pity the young generation today because, unfortunate for them, their attention is being distracted with Facebook, and in our own time, there's no Facebook. When I got the microphone, I told him I differ a little bit with him. I told him we had a Facebook in our own generation, but we faced the real book, the Bible, the Word of God. The young people are facing fake book because there's no book they are facing. The book we face in Joshua chapter 1 verse 7 said, if that book will not depart from our mouth, but we should meditate in it day and night, then shall we make our way prosperous, knowing that our destiny is not kept in anybody's hand. It's no individual that will determine who you will be and where you are going to be. It's all in your hand if you can face the real book. But you can decide to fake book, and you keep on wandering on it from morning till night and end up blaming everybody around you for what is going wrong in your life because you've decided to follow fake book. But if you face this real book, I started facing this real book before I turned 15. And this revolutionized my life, gave me a sense of belonging, gave me a sense of direction that I live above my age in every ramification. I was like a superhuman being because my mind got open and I was at the peak of my youth where everybody in that age is bubbling with life. If you get it right, statistics proved that successful people in life, 86% of them be able to make it between the age of 14 and 28. By 30, you're already in a borderline. Do they make it at 40, 50, 60, even 80? Yeah, they do. But like in the pyramid, it gets very narrow, very rare. The foundation of it is within this age bracket because that's when you will somersault. If you try to somersault, if you never did by 28, you may be dangerous yourself to spinal cord injury. But by 14, 15, 16, 18, you have all the energy to swing yourself back around. In this process, I met the Japanese. This is where before the fundamentalists started taking their life. The Japanese has always committed suicide. These are not religious people. They don't read Bible. They had no Quran. An average Japanese actually is an atheist because you can say they are that they are more in majority what you can call a Buddhist. But the young generations among them make a joke out of it that they are one-time Christian. That's the day they wait. They wear white gown and a suit. And then they are Buddhist the day they die because they will incarnate them. But otherwise, they've never been to the temple, neither have they been in the church. But a man that has gone to a dinner with me, sat on a table, his name is Mr. Mashishita, that has visited me in Nigeria, committed what they call harakashi, which is the normal way of them living. If a Japanese made a promise to you and he couldn't he would take his life and apologize to his family and apologize to the business partner and say, so sorry, I disappointed you. I learned this very early in my life. I learned a lot of cultures from them. I am a young man that have an open mind, and I knew the way life operates. It's not about people, having much argument to make, but life operates by principle. Principles are inherent law that you find in the Word of God. Psalm 119 verse 100, David said, "O Lord, I know your law, and I become wiser than my teachers, than the ancients of the days. The precept of your word is what I kept before me, and this make me wiser than my enemies." If you understood these laws and obeyed them, and one of them is that your word is your bond. I learned this from the Japanese. I learned disciplines from them. I understand what responsibility is all about. Of course, the death of my father at the age of 4 helped to introduce me to early responsibility in life, because by 5th year of my life, I started making decisions for my life, and it was clear. Now, for a Japanese, they will be happier to hear that if you make a financial commitment, even though the roof of your house caved in the following day, it's not a good explanation why you should not keep commitment. People said, am I teaching people to commit suicide? Well, make up your mind. But if you understand what responsibility is, and if you understand what integrity is, there's no explanation good for you not to keep your word. In other words, always work hard to underpromise, but if you can, over-deliver. One of the things you need to do, you have one chance to create an impeccable impression to anybody you meet. You may not have a second chance. And that one chance is, he wants to watch you to see how you keep your word. The Japanese will be happy to know that the roof of your house caved in 2 days ago, but you promised to make a financial commitment today and you made it. I introduced a Nigeria to the Japanese, and he got to meet them earlier. And when he wasn't able to make a payment at the month of the end, he said to Japan, I can't kill myself. I can't kill myself. I did my best. The man said, please, kill yourself. The boy said, what are you in Nigeria? I said, kill yourself because you promised. For a Japanese, the correct thing is that for him to hear tomorrow that you take your life because you didn't make the commitment, not that you come to explain. Nothing is good for explanation. I met these people under 20. I had no capital. I had nowhere to go. I understudied them and knew the way their mind works. The Americans are like gasoline. They start but easily burn out. But Japanese are like diesel engine. If you get to know them and follow their system, they will carry you at any mountain, any hill, no matter how difficult the situation is. They believe that you are a business partner, you are in the same boat. I met them. If who gave you appointment for 11 o'clock, by 10:40, he's in a coffee shop downstairs of your building. He's not going to be there 1 minute after 11, and he will not be there 1 minute before. He will be climbing the step. Once it is 11, he knock in your door, just like a timer. This is Germans. This is Japanese. The Americans, you go to their shop, you see $99.99. $119.99. There's no point in Japanese. The number is clear. No point something. So if you know that, so when a Nigeria will make a promise, I'm seeing you by 10 o'clock, and you arrive there by 10:15, you have passed the text. The man already knew the person is going to be dealing with in future. Many people don't. It's like a culture that we are so engrossed into. It's normal to us that, you can blame everything on traffic. I've had the opportunity to meet some people, and Maybe I'm having just ordinary business meeting with them, not knowing exactly where we're going. And I see him pick up a phone. He's sitting with me and tell the other man, yes, sorry, I'm stuck in a traffic. Give me another 15 minutes, I'll be with you. Oh, I got my idea, the kind of person I'm meeting with. You have one life to live. If you lie to your wife, lie to your children, you will lie to a business partner. You don't have another life. You will not know. Unconsciously, you will do it. So the area we begin to condition our mind to live right in a consistent manner, this is what responsibility is all about. When you learn it and do it, there's no limit to where you can be in life. I discovered these secrets as a young man, and I applied them in my life. I was able to access unprecedented credit, what we call supplier's credit. From the supplier's credit, the banker sees me with money, and they don't know where the money is coming from. They didn't know other person had trusted me, because integrity is one of the most scarce commodity in the country where we live. Anybody who is a Christian that is a smart businessman, you should look for things that is not easily available, because that's where you can make your money. So I discovered that integrity is a scarce commodity in this country. I started exploiting it from that time till today. And it's not surprising that Koscharis today borrowed money from all the banks in Nigeria on a negative pledge. What does a negative pledge mean? Means I do not pledge anything to you. Whereas you go to bank to ask for money, they are asking you to bring your grandmother for collateral, bring your uncle, bring your children. Nobody asks me for anything. It's not because I have too much money, but because people know that my word is my bond. I didn't pick it on the street. It's costly. People like freedom. But many do not know that there is a responsibility for freedom. Freedom has a weight, very heavy weight. Jesus said, take off my yoke. My yoke is easy and my burden is light. There is a yoke that goes with Christian living. It's not about irresponsibility, unaccountable to anybody. We have a bunch of young people today. You don't know who they are going to be. They can walk out from church. They are not ready to explain anything to anybody. So unpredictable that you don't know what next they are going to do. And the unfortunate thing is that somebody has deceived them and told them this is what Christianity is all about. That is loose life. They sing in a choir, speak in tongue, and sleep around on a weekend and claim to be a believer. Something has gone wrong. We need to begin to change the narratives. If God be God and you want to worship him, worship him. So learn to live a life of integrity, where if you perish, you perish. You don't have two lives to live. But if you want to live a life, live an intentional life, a life that is purposeful, that you have a goal that you want to accomplish. God bless you. I do not want to take much of your time because I'm getting a signal that my time is up, and so many other things. If we have time for questions, I can take questions and answer later on. Otherwise, I will wrap it up, and then you can move ahead with the other person. God bless you. Thank you very much.
Pastor, I really didn't want to say anything because I don't want to get emotional. Most of the church know that I've worked in the presidency for 3 years now. I'm an economic advisor to the vice president. Pastor, you've hit the nail on the head. Interacting with Nigerians, we all know the answer. We all know what should be done. Nigerians are quick to say somebody else is corrupt, everybody else should change, and everybody else should make a change, preferring solutions on what should be done. It's a standard thing. Even when people are not being negative, they're always talking about what other people should be doing to save Nigeria. But who built the United States? Who built Singapore? Who built Japan? Who built the countries of Europe? It's only indigents. And like you said, it's about participation. When people come to me or to my boss to discuss things, 98% of people are asking for things that pertain to themselves. Very few people have a heart for change and for the country. Very few people have the mind to understand the issues and to go deep into analyzing systemic change that may or may not favor them, but will favor the country and the poor. Now, I've seen people in government, because we always start with government and point a finger at government. There are people that lack character, no doubt. But there are people that have character. Now, is character all you need to govern well? No. There are people with competence. They have character, they have competence. Is that all you need to govern well? No. There are people with character, with competence, and with capability. Is that all you need to govern well? No. You need courage, because it's a battle for the soul of the nation. And the people that are in the battle, they are there for do or die. But a lot of people, I like the scripture, Brother Nee, and by the way, Brother Nee is one of the people that has a heart for change and has reached out and has come to Abuja to bring solutions to Abuja, to present what he feels in his own, what he has studied can make a change in the country. And there are people from this church, like Brother Dele, that came with him to make that presentation. So I know that GLA is a church that has a heart for the nation. And Pastor Wale has been consistent since I've known him about fatherhood and succession and this nation. Now, that puts GLA in a very good position to be a catalyst for change. It takes courage to speak truth to power. Our leadership does it. But how many members of GLA really speak truth to power? That's the first thing. Apart from speaking truth to power, how many people are ready to do things that might end?
This is the business edition. Today, we are talking about doing business with integrity. I am Oyemi, and it's my honor to have Mr. Lulu Akinwumi with me this evening. It's a very special evening for me as well because I knew him. He was a model of business people that I had as a child. I knew him from birth, and 25 something years, I get the privilege to interview you, sir. So that's special for me, and welcome.
Thank you very much, Amy.
Okay, so Mr. Lulu Akinwumi is the founder, leader, visionary of Prima Garnet Africa, which is one of Nigeria's exports in the advertising world. He led the innovation in that space for quite a while. But sir, I would like to ask you a question this evening so that you get the chance to tell us your story. Why Prima Garnet?
The name?
Not even Prima Garnet, the story. Why? What set you off on that journey?
Well, thank you very much for the question. I was working in another agency. I was on the board, but I was restless because I wasn't quite pleased with some of the things and the things I was involved with. So I decided that instead of remaining within the system and getting with them, I just should go ahead and set something up. Well, for the name itself, that was because nearly all the names we wanted to register had been registered. So I think at some point I came up with Prima and my wife came up with Garnet and decided to combine the two. And thankfully, the name sailed through. So that really was it.
Okay, great. So legend has it that, and you already alluded to it, but legend has it that one of the major drives was you wanted to show that business could be done with integrity. But the bigger story is that you were a director, and so you were in close concert with clients, and many of them already trusted you. But you made the decision not to take any of the clients along and to literally go naked into setting up your own outfit. And the reason I ask this question is because many mentees or young people start off by shafting the people who granted them access or somewhat cheating by taking the advantages that they've gained. And so your model is quite different. And we see that happen time and again. So that's why I wanted you to speak to that.
Well, I think it was a very simple proposition. If what was driving my decision was integrity, then it had to start from me. I mean, it never even occurred to me to try and take any of the clients or the staff, for that matter. I didn't invite anybody, none of the staff. I didn't even tell, I was an executive director, but I didn't, apart from a very close friend of mine, and that was at another level, not because I wanted his business. So from day one, none of my clients, most of them didn't even know I was leaving. And we, literally speaking, we didn't have any business on day one. I mean, we had a checklist of prospects that we were going to talk to, but there was no guarantee that, because I was working on this business or working on that business, they had assured me that they were going to come with us. No, we didn't have anything like that.
So how did you grow your client base? How did you make it work? Because very shortly after, you were profitable, you were renowned, you were known, you were leading.
Let us take it for granted that God was with us.
Okay.
So I won't have to repeat that all of the time. So one of the first things we did was to come up with a strategy. You've got to have a strategy. A lot of people make plans, but without a strategy. So we came up with a checklist of possible clients, people I had known, without the only people who are not on that list were my immediate past clients.
So you kept your word there?
Oh, I did, absolutely. If any of them came to us and became our clients later, it was because they came on their own. In fact, there was one that came, and I was very reluctant to take it, but they had made up their mind to leave my former employer, so it was just as well.
Interesting. So your strategy, and then how did you move with the strategy?
Then we approached them, and nearly all of them had existing agencies. So I approached them and I said, look, we would do some work for you free. No obligations. If you like the work, pay us. If you don't like the work, no problem. But we found so much favor with God that almost invariably whatever we did for them was good enough. Even if they didn't give all of their businesses to us, they gave us enough to start with, and that was how. But it was amazing. Within 6 months, we broke even, and we didn't need to go marketing again after 6 months. So it wasn't.
And 30 years after your. Okay, so I like what you said about strategy because it raises a very big question. Most businesses start today because the founders are without options or hungry, or that's the trend. Everybody is doing it, so it must be where the money taps are, and people move that way. And with you, it seems like you had a map that was different. So you launched the first Nigerian ad on CNN when CNN was still in Mars. I mean, we see CNN today and everybody can accept it. But CNN wasn't a Nigerian market goal at all for the ad space. And you launched a Nigerian ad there, and that was the first time it was being done. Shortly after you started, you went and approached Ogilvy and Martha, and then you entered into your partnership with them.
Ogilvy approached us.
Okay, I said that intentionally. But the fact that at your level, a startup, you had the confidence to even partner and negotiate at that level, it speaks to the, I don't want to use a big word, but the quality of the vision that went into your strategy. So we see a lot of businesses struggling with that. How should, and also because it's also a major fault line down the road, and that leads to mistakes, leads to, we need to do it differently. It's usually a fault line that makes people breach the integrity code. So how should people catch a compelling vision about their business? How do people ideate,
I think you hinted at it already. I mean, the person who just finished speaking was Mr. Maduka Koscharis.
Mm-hmm.
He's obviously, he's quite obviously doing well in his car business and all. What you'll find out really is a lot of people will then say, I want to sell cars because Cosmas Maduka is successful. They don't know what's driving him. They don't know his they don't know everything. All they can see is the success. That is not strategy. So what you then find out is a lot of people who go that way, they may record some initial successes, but invariably, because it's like a tree that the root is not deep, some challenges will come that a Cosmas Maduka will be able to weather, they will not be able to weather it. So to go into any form of business at all, you've got to sit down and determine why you want to go into it. A whole lot of things that you need to do. All of those will not even give you any guarantee, but at least you are certain, your eyes are clear, you've got to focus on why I'm going into this type of business and not that one.
Yeah, thank you. So that takes me to the next line of thought that I'm following. Integrity in business is something that businesses have to deal with, whether they're dealing with government or employees or clients or regulators and even shareholders. And what it is like a dance of interests. You have different interests that you have to balance. Who should we pay? How do we move the money? We're not making enough money. Do we borrow? And you see that as businesses begin to grow, they begin to make, in fact, at the beginning stages, they begin to make choices that make it difficult to stay the straight line because there's some interest that is disturbing them. Maybe we need to have more money, or I don't have people, I need to, bribe somebody to come up, or even the regulatory aspects of it, particularly in Nigeria, where we have a very, we have regulators who are very heavy-handed sometimes, and it's difficult to navigate that space. So I would ask you two questions. Who gave you the most trouble walking through that line, that ecosystem of shareholders, government, employees, and how did you learn the art of balancing the interest so that you did not breach your integrity code that you started with?
See, the whole subject of integrity is, let me put it very simply, is really about deciding that I'm going to do things the right way. That's the simplest definition. It can be about business. It can be as simple as paying the right tax. It can manifest in 1,001 ways. But unfortunately, when most people talk about integrity, they more or less restrict it to things like bribery and all.
So it's more than that?
It's huge. It's big. It comes to even employment. you're bringing somebody in who hasn't done too well in an interview, but because the person is your wife's cousin, and there's another candidate, it's tough. So you've got to set up structures that will protect the goal of integrity. It's extremely difficult. I'll tell you, you run a company, and for 4 months of the year, you haven't done well, and you are given business by a big government corporation, and they have said, look, we're going to spend ₦1 billion with you, but we don't want bribe from you. In actual fact, just add 200 million to it. So make that budget 1.2 billion. You take your 1 billion, the 200 million is for us. It sounds okay to many people. But you are a lawyer, you know that when you do that, you're already complicit. If there is any problem down the line, I don't know whether they call it vicarious liability. It is not right. And if it is not right, you can never rationalize it and say maybe it's right. People give bribery all kinds of names. They say, oh, it's not bribery, it's thank you, it's this and that. If that makes you comfortable, okay. But if it is not right, you will know within you that this thing is not right and I shouldn't do it. Now, whether you can devise and think ahead and look at other ways. I'll give you an example. We had clients who wanted money and we weren't doing it. And they would take the business from us. So we were bleeding businesses. So at some point, we spoke with some very senior, very experienced Christians, and they said, look, this is what they taught them under ethics in the business school. Don't wait for that client to ask you for money. Speak with your board. Can you have, can you set aside something that you will discuss even with the management of the company and tell them that, look, we pay this to those who help us to find businesses. And our biggest business ever came from Crystal Bank then, the same bank that we took to CNN. And the gentleman was surprised when we said, look, you're bringing this business to us. We are paying you this percentage. It's not under the table. We're paying you with a check. We are recording it at the board meeting. We are telling the tax people we have just started it. And the guy was happy, and we went through all of that. But I can let you know it's extremely difficult.
Yeah. So what I was going to ask a question about that, because what you said now is tact, right? Most people would use the tricks. People would go for tricks instead of tact. So you thought through and found a solution. What has been the biggest cost that you have had to pay for your integrity?
Too many. I can't say this is the biggest. Where, literally speaking, the business would be... I'll give you an example. No, I'll try and see if I can give you two very quickly because of time. I'll give you an example. It was with a huge government regulator, and they had given us the business. And the gentleman in charge, the head of corporate whatever, came and said he wanted money and we weren't going to give. In 2 weeks, he took 600 million out of that budget and used it one way or the other. Left us with about 400. The guy who took over from him came and said, just give me 200. Whatever you want to do with the other 200 is not my business. And I said no. And for nearly 1 year, they didn't pay us the 400 because we said no to him. Wow. So I like to encourage people that, look, there's always a price to pay. Sometimes you'll get it right. Sometimes it will be very painful. There's always a cost. In the Christian life, there's always a cost. And I think that's part of what Mr. Maduka was trying to say. There's a cost to it, and except you are ready to bear the cross and pay the price, then
you
there's
just
no
continue
point.
to play the game like everyone else. So this is my last question to you, and I wish it was longer, but did the digital revolution scare you?
It can't scare me because it's a tool that we use. You had advertising, what we call advertising now, is very big, but it's fragmented over the years. From the main advertising, you have digital, you have all kinds of things. And in the last 5 years, it's been very clear that the whole world is going digital.
Yeah.
So we had prepared for it. You don't have a choice. The tool that you're supposed to use cannot scare you. All you need to do is acquire as much knowledge about it, hire the right type of people, send your people for the right type of training, sell all of everything you can do to your clients, and you should be ready to, to move ahead. No, it doesn't scare us at all.
Okay. Because for a lot of ads companies, it was, my space has been infiltrated.
No.
And you have lots of businesses that interpret tools as war, right? So that, I think we would continue this conversation in the next session.
Sure.
Thank you, everyone. I hope that you were able to glean something beautiful from what I will take the privilege of calling him Uncle Lolu right now said. And see you soon. Thank you.
Thank you for inviting me. Thank you very much.
When I grew up as a young man, I knew one of the most scarce commodity in Nigeria is integrity. And I knew to be able to succeed that I need to utilize this very well. And I started working with the Japanese, whom taught me integrity. Not church, not mosque. The Japanese commit suicide if they make a promise to you and they cannot keep it, they take their life. And write you a letter of apology and say they are sorry they disappointed you. There's no explanation good enough for them not to keep their promise. A Japanese is happy to hear that the roof of your house caved in, but you met a payment obligation of yesterday, as you say you would do. But Nigeria will say, I won't kill myself. One of my friends I took to Japan, the Japan said, please kill yourself. Because you promised. It's honorable for him to know you died because you don't keep your promise. You say, what am I teaching you? I'm teaching you how to commit suicide. But it's teaching you to know that you cannot compromise integrity. As a matter of fact, you are not rich until people can trust you.
Hello, everyone. Good evening, good afternoon, depending on where you're watching us from. It's still the 7,000 conference, the business edition. If you're just tuning in, or perhaps you watched the previous conversation with Oyeyemi and Mr. Lulu Akiwumi, I hope you took some notes and you've taken a few things away from today's conference, even though we're not yet halfway there. There's still a lot to learn, and we're looking forward to our next conversation with our next guest. If you have questions, at the end of the individual interviews, we're going to have a panel session. So kindly keep your questions for then, as you might want to ask perhaps more specific questions. My next guest is a woman who has distinguished herself in the interior design space in Nigeria and beyond. She is the founder, CEO at Oak Antique Interiors, and she has transacted business across states in Nigeria and overseas. She has won multiple entrepreneurial awards, and very importantly, she's a champion for doing business with integrity. Morenike Mulein, very welcome. Good evening. Thank you very much.
Good evening, Aya. Thank you for having me.
Excellent. Now, there's so many, my mind is buzzing because I know that you're a woman who is not ashamed to talk about the way she runs business, and that in itself is inspiring. You know, in some quarters, people would rather keep quiet, not want to trade secrets. But let me ask a question that's, you know, that's gone through the theme throughout this evening, and that's really why we're here. Is it how easy or how possible is it to do business with integrity in your field specifically, you know, in the interior design space and as a business owner?
Okay, all right. Interesting question. So for me, I think that from the beginning, from the get-go, I've always been a person with values and principles, right? Such that going into business, it kind of like followed me into it. So it's like a way of life already, right? From a young age, you know, my parents, you know, would always instill these values and principles such that, you know, going into it, it felt easy. But obviously, like along the line, you know, having to do business with integrity, obviously you will see some things and, you know, they will shake you. But, you know, thankfully because of your values, you know, they say that if you don't stand for something, you fall for anything, right? Yeah. So at the point where, you know, you are tempted to, and we've had situations like that, and then immediately, thankfully because of, you know, my position as a Christian, as a child of God, that helps, and also the values as well that, you know, that I've also put in place has also helped. So I would say that regardless of the industry, it's possible to do business with integrity.
Thank you very much. So regardless of the industry, one word you kept mentioning again and again, values.
Yes.
So what inspired or inspires your values, and can you share some of those values? And then how do you ensure that your values are not compromised?
All right, so for me, integrity is actually like a very big one, and it's just interesting that, you know, Dr. Esther has asked me to come on here to speak about integrity. So integrity is one, you know, excellence is, you know, another one as well. But I'll just, you know, really touch on integrity, you know, and then doing in business. And I'll just quickly share a story if I'm...
Absolutely, please. That's what we're here for. Thank you.
All right, so we've had, again, okay, so the two speakers that have spoken ahead of me, you know, would see that they have actually been in business maybe 30 or 40 years. And, you know, and as they're sharing their stories, they're at the point where they're telling us, hey, this is what happened to me on my journey. So I feel like me presently, I'm actually at that point, right? So because I've been doing business for 8 years, so I feel like I'm now at that point where, you know, so many things are being thrown at me, and, you know, I have to either make a choice almost every day, you know, to, you know, say yes or say no, right? There was a particular project that we were supposed to get, and, you know, we had finished doing everything that we were supposed to do, you know, presented everything, and then we are the last, we're at the finishing stage, right? And this is like, you know, 9 figures that we're talking about. And, you know, one of the high top management officers was like, you know what, if you're going to get this job, you have to give me some cuts. And I'm like, okay, we don't do that. Unfortunately. So at that point, I knew that it was either we're going to lose it or we're going to get it. But because of the values that I already had, for me, at the end of the day, looking at it and saying that what is really important to me, right? Yes, you might have all the money now, and, you know, the money is gone or something. So what is important to me? So we looked at it and I said, you know what, no, we're not going to do that. Fortunately, right, higher powers came over and said, you know what, we'll give you guys the project. But at that point, I was ready to say, no, we're not going to do that.
Thank you. You've actually highlighted 2 things. One that Dr. Maduka talked about, which is it must be a lifestyle. It's something you do not just in business. Your personal life has to reflect it. And then what Mr. Kiwumi said with regards to the fact that be prepared to lose certain jobs.
Yes.
So at that point, you were prepared to lose a 9-figure job for integrity's sake.
Yes.
So if I hear you clearly as well, you're saying that you must prioritize. So money is not everything for you. So in business, if you must do business with integrity, well, isn't that a bit funny? Because you go into business to make money, and then you're saying that. So how do you balance that?
So I would say, integrity, right, is doing the right thing, knowing fully well that people might either know whether you do it or you don't do it at all. The money will eventually come, because what would happen is that you would get the respect from clients, customers, and eventually, that will bring in more jobs. So we're not saying, so if you have like 20 opportunities, we're not saying that the entire 20 will be at the point where you have to, say no or say yes, right? You might be maybe 1 or 2 or 3 out of it. And then if you have the remaining 17, I think that that's fine and that's fair enough. Basically.
Excellent. So there's a level of greed you must do away with. So
Yeah.
17 out of 20 is pass mark.
It's pass mark.
Even if you lose it for integrity's sake.
You lose it.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Now let's get down to the practicalities.
Yes.
We hear stories of I do my business with integrity, I'm a woman of integrity. But let's go into it. So what are the processes, checks and balances you put in place, policies perhaps in your business in Oak Antique that makes it, you ensure that it runs as a business with integrity?
So for me, I would say that the first thing will be keeping to our word, right? And so that will flow through all our processes and procedures. So yes, integrity is not just about saying no to bribery or whatever. It's also committing to your word. So someone has paid you to do a job, and you are committed to ensuring that you finish that job, regardless of what your eyes will see on that job. We've had situations whereby, we get a project and then we're going, and in the middle of it, either, we realize that we're not running at a loss, or, some things have happened that, we cannot continue normally, like under normal circumstances. But because you've given your word, you will finish it, even if, for us, well, for some people it might be stupid, but even if you have to dip money and dip your hands in your pockets from other projects, from your savings rather, to finish that job. We had a project last year, and I was supposed to, go on for about 6 months, and then for some reason, I don't know, I think all hell just, like all the forces in this life was just against that project, to the extent whereby we even had to start praying, like in the office, on concerning that project, and everything that could go wrong went wrong. But I just kept on telling them, and just at that point I had to put on my leadership hat and encouraging everyone, because the project manager was already crying, already upset, very depressed already on the project, so I also had, even though I'm like, the money that we are losing on this thing, you are not even losing anything financially, you're only just losing in terms of strength and all of that, but, we have to, I always say this, at the office, that this too shall pass, like no matter the projects, right, you cannot be on a project for 5 years, right, so eventually, the end date will come, it's just that it's not coming at the time that you want, so keeping to your word and ensuring that when someone has given you money in exchange for value, you make sure you go all the way to do that. So that's one of the things that that helps us as well.
Excellent. Now, Mr. Kiwumi talked about an aspect of integrity that I'd like us to touch on.
Okay.
You seem to be very big on staff and welfare and making your staff feel very valued. He talked about even the way we treat staff, employment contracts, overtasking your workers, not paying enough. How do you...
I don't think anyone pays anyone enough.
At least you go to work smiling. I know that, okay, at least even if it's not, I'm being paid. How do you handle that? I see you do staff away days, you celebrate your staff. Is it just social media? Does it run deep? And how do you build a culture of integrity? Because they heard you can say something, but what is stopping your project manager from putting, adding, how they say in government, there's the budget from the budget office, and it gets padding. We don't want that. How do you ensure that it's a culture, even amongst your staff members?
Okay, so I think the first question, I would say that, first of all, generally, I'm big on people welfare. So apart from, staff, even at home, my friends, everyone, I just want everyone, like I'm just very happy and just, passionate about just doing good, really, basically. And then one of my mantras would be, I find different expressions to help people, right? So you would also see that translate, in the company as well. I think it's even this period as well, right? We also engage someone to have therapy sessions with everyone in the staff in the company, just to see where everyone is at mentally, mental health. Because I was thinking about it the other day, and I was thinking, oh my goodness, we have situations whereby the project manager or the architects or the 3D visualizers, they're either speaking or having conversations with artisans, even clients as well. Sometimes, you're not providing the service that they want at that time, and then they just pick up their phone. Not everyone has the emotional intelligence, and unfortunately, like, you don't even know what the project manager has just gone through, and then you now so I felt like, these people are actually going through a lot, because if I, as the CEO, can even understand what they're going through, why don't we? And so we decided to engage someone, that would do that. And some of them didn't even know that they needed it. It was afterwards that they realized that, oh my goodness, like I need it. So I think that for me, it's just trying to find, each person, like, what do they really need? And I think maybe just generally, like, as a mother figure, also ensuring, and looking at it individually, right? And the way I treat each person is different, right? And then going to your other question will be, I think we're talking about...
With regards to building a culture of integrity.
Culture,
so it's not just you.
Yeah, so we've also put in policies, right? So sometimes some people might actually come in with the right intentions, but if you don't put policies guiding it, they can actually sway. So from the onset, we've also put checks and balances, except maybe at the point where, and I don't want to give expo on how to now cheat us, but but I would say that from the beginning, during your induction as well, we let you know how we hold integrity to high standard. If you're caught, it's immediate termination, right? So we are big on that, like they understand, and so yes, I think that's what has also helped.
Excellent. Now, you mentioned an area that a number of people in your line of work find very terrifying, dealing with artisans. So one part dealing with artisans and the other part dealing with difficult clients.
Yes.
Especially clients that, that just add the money because they will bid down the price. It's just a nature, you feel accomplished when you're able to bid down. So what some people do is they beef up the figures.
Yes.
Or so you hide your profit so they don't cut down your profit margin. Do you employ that? And if you don't, how do you ensure that you're making enough money?
Okay.
Dealing with difficult clients who are used to having to bid down prices, and also artisans ensuring that they also deliver quality. So the quality of your service, if you say you're going to give them a certain standard, they don't reduce the quality for your client.
All right, so working with artisans, like over the years, so, I've been in business for a short while, 8 years. Well, 8 years next in 2 months. And
that's not short. That's not. In Nigeria, that's amazing.
And so what we've done, obviously, like, we've met different kinds of people, different. The ones that you give money and then you're waiting on the day to deliver, and then till now, 7 years after, I haven't found the money, I have not seen the guy, I have not seen the furniture piece, nothing. The person just disappeared into thin air. So we met different people, right? I've also worked with different people along the line. So, but now, right, because we've, gathered experience, we've gained experience, and then we also now we know what we want as a company. We have also structured artisans as well. The truth is that sometimes we give excuses. Yes, I know that these people, they give you headaches and all of that. But I always say that if you take the same person and put them in Dubai or put them in London, they would actually adhere to the regulations and the law and everything that is there. So for us as well, right, we have artisan contracts. If you want to work with us, this is what we would accept. This is not what we accept. At the end of last year, we did appraisal as well. So artisan, like the 3 best artisans of the year, recognize them, give them money and all of that. And then those that did not do well, 3 of them, we put them under suspension. 3 months, 6 months, 1 year. And so everybody knew that if you know that you are serious, you're not serious rather, this company, just go, right? So it's not so what will happen is sometimes we're sentimental. I've been working with this person for 4 years, 5 years. If I let him go, where will I find another person? Trust me, you would find somebody else. So for us, that's how, we've done that. Now, going back to, clients that are difficult, I think that for me, it's basically just understanding emotional intelligence. And also, when you meet a client from the beginning as an entrepreneur or, as a business owner, understanding the person's temperament, their character, and then find ways to already, there's some people that, you already know how to treat them once you meet them. And so it's very difficult. It's very hard for us to actually have clients that will say, I'm going to call the police on you, that you've never had such situations. Yes, have there been clients that were upset over, one or two things? Yes. And then also as a company, we always say, I know that, this customer is always right thing, sometimes can be very annoying sometimes, but we always just say, you know what, these two, like I always say, these two shall end. Making sure, because we've had situations whereby one client, in fact, we've countless number of times where we feel like, and I always laugh about this when it happens, when you think that a client is really upset, that you just feel like, you know what, let's just finish this job and go, and we know that this person will never call us again. And then 2 months down the line, someone is calling and saying, oh, hi, my name is this, I got your number from so person. And I'm like, really? So, she could refer, it has happened not 10 times, not 20 times. Wow. It happens. We're not saying that, we do that regularly, but I'm just saying that, sometimes that happens. So, going back to the question on, buffing up, the invoice and all of that. So for us, like, we have like a very detailed invoice, right? So line by line, we let you know this is where the money is going to, the furniture pieces, the, different things, right? Mm-hmm. And then we have like our professional fees as well, right? And our logistics, and all of that. Yes, there's some things that we mark up because we are also producing them as well. And so obviously like the artisan part where, we are also going to be doing the whole headache of chasing and monitoring and making sure. So we do that. But there are some things, right? So for example, you want to buy AC, whatever LG is giving to you, is what, we are going to pay for. We've also had instances whereby we return money to clients.
So you return any money?
Yeah, excess money. Yes, we do return that. In fact, like, I think 6-7 days ago, we still did that to, even a billionaire self. And we're thinking, this person did not need this money.
What's their reaction like when you say, oh, by the way, we have change?
And I'm talking about like almost 7 figures kind of returning back. Yes, we've had, such...
What's the reaction of your clients when
we don't see their reaction now because we send it to them, or we deduct it from like the final bill, because obviously like when they're engaging us, they pay a certain percentage. So when we are done, they just minus that. But I know that it will go a long way. We might not be reaping it now, we might be later. We've had a client whereby we did that, and 2 years after, he was moving to Rwanda, and then out of all the interior designers in Rwanda, he decided that he was going to call us back, and come over to Rwanda. So those are like some of the perks, but without doing that, we're always just happy to do business, right?
Excellent. So you've answered a question I was going to ask, which was a success story. So I'll take the Rwanda one as a success story. So it's opened doors for you even on the international front. Yeah. Now tell us, they say that because people make mistakes, so you might set out with wanting to do your business with integrity, and once in a while you fall. They say it's not how many times you fall, but the ability to rise up and continue doing good. Have you ever had a time where it was difficult and you found it challenging, or you had to compromise? How did you respond to it? Or you were tempted to?
For temptation, yes. And I think that I've already mentioned, an instance earlier. For me, I would say that once that happens, right, take responsibility for it, own it, like take responsibility, learn from it, and truly, and then move on, and then set to do the right thing, actually. But for us, in terms of like compromising, I would say no.
Amazing. That was a bit of a trick question.
Yes, it's a trick question.
All right, just finally, are you accountable to anyone? I know you're big, you talk about your mentors, and I know that when you do businesses like this, for some people, especially if it's a challenge, it's good to have someone you're accountable to. Do you have someone or an organization you're accountable to, and how do you manage that relationship?
So it's very easy because it's my husband. Yes, it's my husband, and that's basically. But yeah, do I have mentors? Yes, I do have mentors. I have people that I look up to in terms of like how they do business. Even Mr. Maduka as well. Is someone that I really look up to. The way he does his business. But obviously, like I'm not close to him to say, oh, this is what we do. And what I used to do before, one of my mentors, Mrs. Ibukwa Awushika, before I before I met her physically, what I would do would be, at the end of the year, I would write a report, like a letter, as well as addressing it to her, and let her know all the things that, I've achieved, all the things that, went wrong, and all of that. And just keep the letter, right? Hoping that one day, or that I will meet her, or even if I don't meet her, but, I just felt that I was accountable, that I needed to be accountable to her. And then that also helped me as well. And so I think I did that English is hard.
Don't worry, we love it.
Consecutively.
Ah, you got it.
I did
Well
it.
done.
For like 3-4 years.
Yes.
And then I just kept doing that. And I realized that, every letter the previous year, the next year was better than the previous year. And so when I had the opportunity to meet her, the first thing that I told
Did
her
you
was...
give her all the letters?
I didn't give her, but I told her,
Wow,
right? And then
amazing.
after that, I've been doing that physically with her now at
Excellent.
the end of every year.
Amazing. I'm sure people would agree with me that the conversation can definitely go on longer, and there's a lot to learn from you.
Thank
I think
you.
she just emphasized the point that Dr. Maduka talked about, which is that it starts from your person.
Yes.
So who are you? And that is what reflects in your business.
True.
And so perhaps a question for those who are watching right now is to start to ask yourself, who am I? What are my principles? What are my values? What drives me? If I were presented with an unlimited amount of money, would I compromise? Well, thank you so much, Monica. I know we're
Thank
having you
you.
back for the
Yes,
panel session,
yes,
so if
yes.
people have questions, they can ask you. Well, we've heard from men who have run their business for tens of years, and now we've heard from a business owner who's run her business for under 10 years, and you can see the lessons that we're learning in terms of doing business with integrity. My next guest is another accomplished Nigerian, and she'll be sharing with us her own journey. Stay tuned. It's still the 7,000 Conference, Business Edition, brought to you by the Alternative Business School, founded by Dr. Esther Longe. Today's conference is focusing on doing business with integrity. And in the past 1 hour, we have spoken to a number of business owners in Nigeria who are successful, very successful in their own right. And they've shared their story with us as to how possible it is to do business with integrity and the way that you can also do it as well. We've also had the keynote speech by Dr. Cosmas Maduka. Now, if you missed any of our speakers, please stay tuned, as in a few minutes, we'll have a panel session with all of them, and you can ask questions and hear them speak further. Now, it's an honor and pleasure to introduce our next guest for today's conference. Our next guest needs no introduction, as she's one of Nigeria's most recognized artists, reputed as one of Nigeria's foremost photographers, and a member of the talented photography collective, Depth of Field. She has photographed 3 sitting presidents alongside captains of industries, heads of governments in Nigeria and beyond. She's a celebrated musician as well, and recently released her album, Africa Awake. Ladies and gentlemen, please let's make very welcome T.Y. Bello. T.Y., good to have you on today.
It's great to be here.
Thank you. Congratulations on Africa Awake.
Thank you so much.
Wonderful.
Thank
Now, you know, when people see you, I want to assume that the first thing they see is an artist.
Yeah.
And so when we talk about business, perhaps people don't immediately think of the business of art.
Yeah.
But there's a huge business side to it, isn't it?
Yes, there
So
is.
please, can you share with us what the business of art is?
Well, my journey as a business person is very personal because I'm like a reluctant businesswoman. I was always more excited about the art, and I really wish I didn't have to deal with the business. And so business was something that I had to do, initially very reluctantly. But then I found out that I could find my own way, that I didn't need to do it in the way that people said I had to do business. So it's been, for me, business has been a journey of growth, personal discovery, and creating at the same time. So it's not necessarily just business, but it's like, oh, this is me thriving as a creative person, and this is how I can keep it going.
Yeah.
You know.
I was going to say, some people hire business managers.
Yeah.
How involved are you in your business?
I'm extremely involved in my business. Initially, I was given advice to hire a business manager, and then I had my life coach say, this is what the problem is going to be. Eventually, you're going to evolve into that. But the way things have been, because my business is really small, and it's very personal, it's one-on-one. Like when I photograph someone, it's pretty much me, face to face, idea to idea with the person a lot of times. And then, of course, I have a team that I'm working with. So everyone who works in my team is in one way or the other having to manage the business in their own way as well.
Excellent. When you said my business is small, I was like, oh, in terms of staff strength, because
We're
your
really
business is not small. And I'm sure people would agree with me. So I'd like to ask the same question I asked Monica in terms of your understanding of business integrity. We've seen different faces of it this evening. It would be good to hear your thoughts. What does business integrity mean to you?
Yeah. I think for most people, when they think of the word integrity, they're thinking, how straightforward am I? Do I run away with people's money? Do I collect bribes? No, I don't do all of those things, so I have integrity. But in my business and the kind of work that I do, it's very unlikely that someone will try to bribe me for anything. Do you understand? So I think the real test of my integrity has been how close can I stay true to form, to the idea that I'm trying to further. Do you understand? So if I remember when I started my business, I decided that I wanted to be a portrait photographer, but it was more lucrative to shoot weddings. But I said, hey, if I don't make any money this year, I'm going to shoot portraits because this is what I want to do. This is what I am good at. Now, people don't value that. And this was when I started my business. It wasn't a thing. Everybody had an idea of what portraits were. You went to a Lofats and you had your photos done very quickly and you took off. And that was it. Or you went to Studio The Best. And the idea that I was trying to sell wasn't something that was known in these parts or common in these parts. So it was me saying, I believe in this idea enough to stick with it, even though no one is necessarily paying me to do it. For me, that was the test of my integrity, knowing what the vision was and sticking to it, even though it wasn't popular. So that is still what it is till today. It's not always about like the regular boxes that you tick to check if you have integrity. It's, are you invested in yourself? Do you have enough integrity to invest in yourself enough this year? How much time do you spend on personal development? Are you in the business for what you can get out of it? How much more of yourself are you putting into it? How much are you putting into your depleted self? Those are the little integrity lines that I have to cross all the time to stay creative and stay cutting edge, really. Yeah. I can give you my microphone.
Thank you so much. That's very kind. Thank you. I was just saying that's actually very deep because I wouldn't have thought in that line, and I'm glad that you've taken us on that journey with regards to staying the course and staying true to yourself. Now, what are the peculiar challenges you faced at the beginning of your career, especially in the line you chose? Because it's not a very popular choice, especially the parts of the world that we're in. So doctors, you know how we're told you have to be a doctor, lawyer, and then you thought you were going to do photography, and not just commercial photography, we put it that way, but very specific, portraits. What are the challenges that you faced in staying true to who you were and who you are today?
I think the biggest challenge that I faced was doing it afraid. It's easier to run with something when you share it with everyone and they're like, oh, that is a fantastic idea. And everybody is cheering you on and telling you just how wonderful you are. But when your idea is met by, photo, why? How? Do you understand? And people are telling you, oh, I remember I keep telling this story about how I had met someone, and she said, oh, you're living your dream, Abby. And she goes, wake up, because it's like, this is not real. Like, you can't build a long-term career out of this. So it was like, okay, what do you do? And the person didn't do it from a wicked place. They were trying to give me counsel, and they were trying to be realistic. Do you understand? But most of the time, a good idea is not necessarily realistic. It usually isn't, So it's, what do you do when somebody gives you information that seems meaningful and seems truthful, but you have something on the inside of you that is telling you, we're going to ride in this direction, and this is where we're going to go with it. And when nobody else sees it, I think that was the biggest challenge, was the days that I cried and I was like, God, please don't let me down, because there are people giving me good advice, and I can easily take it. I mean, I went to school, I studied economics. I could have taken a nice job at GT Bank, JJ. Do you understand?
And banking money.
Banking money, security, But then in the end, I think I'm glad that I stayed the course. And then I think what staying the course does is it teaches you to steady the course as you go along. Because your challenges are not only at the beginning.
Yeah.
Challenges just morph and they change into other things. And I think if you build those steady principles of just keeping focused, looking in the straight and narrow and saying, this is where I'm going, even as you start to grow and succeed, and that comes with its own challenges, then your problems are completely different, and you need to be able to navigate with the same steadiness and resilience, really.
Excellent. I'm going to ask you two questions because it's under the same umbrella but different. And it's, with your business. So you have photographed very high-profile clientele.
Yeah.
Indeed, you're synonymous with, some people see your pictures and think, let me go and make some money before I call her line. How do you, and for you to, there's an African proverb, I think, he who will eat with elders must wash his hands.
Yeah.
So if you are going to deal with people at that level, there must be a level of trust that you have earned.
Oh, yes.
I'd love for you to touch on that in terms of how you have been able to build a brand such that people like that can expose themselves to you.
Yeah.
So they call you into their family homes. You see the bickering sometimes. You hear conversations that perhaps might be a bit, but your brand has earned the trust for them to invite you into their homes. That's one. Then the second part, still on clientele, is you might also get some questionable portfolios. Can you share with us if you've encountered any of such an experience, how you dealt with it, without coming across as being judgmental and still sticking with your values and your principles?
I think there cannot be any integrity without love. I think love is the foundation for every kind of definition that you have for the word integrity. You cannot serve people if you do not love them. And so for the last 20 years, I've built my photography practice on love. I'm a Christian. Love is patient. Love is kind. Love doesn't keep record of wrong. Love believes in the best of every person. When I meet someone to photograph them, I'm not judge or jury. I'm there to see the very best in them. That is my job. It's not about ever looking at anyone and thinking you're better than them. The truth is that if you love people enough, they will be better. It's just really that simple. So it's every contact with you should make someone want to be their best, And so I've never photographed someone and said, I could never shoot that person, because I would shoot anybody. And the reason is because that is what you should do. You are here to serve and you're here to love. So every chance I get to photograph someone, I'm thinking, this is my opportunity to serve this person. And I can look at them in a way that will cause them to see themselves differently. I always say my clients, they're never the same after, we spend that day together, because they see themselves differently.
Absolutely wonderful. And so I'm glad you answered both in the same way. So service, love, you would never turn down a job because it's not your role to...
No, I don't. What I mean by that is, like, if I were to do a photograph and it would be a source of controversy, of course, I don't promote controversy, and there's no love in doing that. But what I'm saying instead is that every time you have an opportunity to photograph someone, it is you being there. You're serving them. You're serving their purpose, and you're there to basically pour your love on that work by being excellent, by being, by being your creative best, by making great decisions on their behalf, by guiding them through the way, because it's not necessarily very easy sitting on the other end of the camera, and just walking through all these processes with people and genuinely loving them. I think that is the one thing that I do. It's not, oh, give me your money now, I can just throw you photographs. No, I am very interested in the process, and I'm there to walk alongside with you, and that's how I do business more.
That's excellent. So have you turned down any job?
I usually would turn down jobs on instinct. So it's usually because I get a call and something is telling me you can't do that job. Not necessarily because of anything. It might be because the timing may look good now, but then it might not be good. Or maybe I'm not the exact kind of photographer that they need. So let me give an example. I sometimes will be asked to do a certain kind of photography, and I'm thinking, this kind of photograph they are describing is Kelechi Amadiobi. You know what? I'm going to do you a big favor. I'm a great photographer, but I think I know what you need, and I don't think I'm the best person for the job. Here's the number for so, and so, and so. And I do that quite a lot. If I find a job, and for me, that's also integrity. When you get a job that's not yours, in other words, that it's you've drawn your lines clear enough to know where your strengths lie and what you really can offer. And when somebody is throwing good money at you and you can see you're going to struggle, and that means you will not be able to serve their best interest, then you can let somebody else have it.
Thank you. Thank you for pointing that out, because that's an aspect we haven't talked about. We talk about, give me the money first and I'll learn how to do the job. So your first response to everyone, can you do it? Yes. And you will not meet up. Shout out to all those tailors during, Christmas periods, festive periods, and artisans whom they're like, can you do? Yes.
And that's so dangerous to say yes to everything, because then you don't now have space for the great things when they come. You've said yes to everything. You've cluttered your life with work that doesn't belong to you. And then when the big openings come, you can't take them. You can't handle it.
Thank you. Thank you for touching on that. Now let's talk about other aspects of your business, music, and you being a brand spokesperson. So is it different, your attitude, your business attitude to photography, as with being a spokesperson for a brand? So I know that it would take a lot for you to turn down a photography job that's, that is not within your values. You would spread love, and if you're able to do it, you will do it, if it's something that's within your creative space. How about being a because I know you speak for certain brands in that line. Do you investigate? Because you are a powerful influencer, and when you speak, people listen. How do you manage that to ensure that you're not misleading people? That's one. And then on the music end, you are an interesting musician, especially because you don't box yourself. So for a number of Christians, they do strictly gospel music. But you do other things. You talk about love. You talk about nation building. I mean, your recent album, even though every single one of your songs, they have an undertone of your beliefs, of your faith. But one of my favorite songs of yours is not The Land is Green. It's the one that's like an anthem. How can we say that? No, when we have just begun? The future is the future
is here.
Yes,
the future.
It is. I think it should be our second anthem because it's so powerful. How do you ensure that you don't cross the line? Because there can be a thin line between you doing music that perhaps might not align with your beliefs and not box yourself as a gospel artist, if I put it that way.
I don't think what's important about a line is not how thick or thin it is. It's how clear it is. As in, I think that a lot of times we delude ourselves to thinking that we don't know what's going on, but a lot of times we do. If you're going to be taking commission to be a spokesperson for someone or for something, then I don't think I'm a great candidate for it if I don't believe in what they're doing. So I think I would do very poorly. You would not see my best side if I couldn't stand up for whatever it was that they were doing. So I know that over the years I've had opportunities that I have turned down because I knew the kind of opportunities that I wanted. And because I was quite clear about the kind of opportunities I wanted, I took the risk and I was willing to wait. And sometimes when you decide that you're willing to wait for the good things to come, to other people, they're like, a bird in the hand is what to in the bush. You will suffer, but I think what has been good is in my short time living this life as a creative, I found out that patience actually does work. And if you're patient, not necessarily because you're arrogant, but because you are clear, the lines are drawn out really clearly for you, your opportunities will come.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Now to your music, because I know there are other people like you, Christians, who think, okay, you have to do strictly this kind of music because you're a person of faith. How do you balance it, so that you're speaking and you're still doing it in alignment with your values?
I don't think there's any balance at all. Like, it's more about, like I said before, being clear. You know who you are. For me, I am a woman. And I don't sing every song that says, woman, woman, I'm a woman, and I must look at every single topic in life from that standpoint of or perspective. Or I'm a woman, I'm a wife, I'm a mother, I'm a child. Every song can be about that one person that I am. I am many different things. My faith is the foundation and the platform for everything that I say. But I am willing to talk about everything. I'm willing to talk through music about myself, my struggles. My songs are not necessarily always about how awesome I am. Most of them are a lot of times when I'm overwhelmed with my own, inadequacies or my weaknesses. And those things do inspire very sincere songs, So I think it's just staying true and not ever painting a picture of yourself and of who you're not. And then you can create art that is really sincere. And if it's true, people will feel it. They can tell when it's, after a while, when it's contrived, they'll know that it's jamming it together. But I think that over the years, and the lines get clearer and clearer and clearer and clearer. And a lot of times, things narrow down. So there are many things that you may be doing and you may not need to do so much anymore. But sometimes things kind of widen up. And then you can have new expressions and new experiences. It's being sincere and open at the same time to whatever it is that God will have you do.
Excellent. Thank you. Final question, and then we'll move on to our next part of the conference, which is, people talk, all the three speakers that we've had before now have talked about your personality being evident in the quality of the output of your work. People talk about you as being very warm, very friendly. What shapes your personality? Why are you who you are still? I know that's a very big question, but I'd love for you to share with us. Are there things that keep you grounded so that despite the fame and accolades that you achieve, you still remain that down-to-earth TY that people can just come up to you? I should be calling you Sister TY or Mrs. Bello.
Mrs. Bello.
So what keeps you grounded?
I think Veronica said the same thing. I'd say first thing, God. Second, my husband. I think I'm married to a human being that, keeps it real and, and lets me know that I don't have to pretend. I don't have to be who I'm not. I can be me, and me is good. Me is fine enough. And me can grow. Me can evolve. So I have evolved, I have changed, and I have grown. I don't have any claims to perfection on being the greatest human being that I know. I'm growing, I'm always being squeezed and I'm molded, and I'm learning, I make mistakes. But I think it's just knowing that, you have to love who you are so that you can love others. And I think if you have that same kind of acceptance for yourself, then maybe you're not as hard on other human beings. I'm very hard on myself. And maybe sometimes when I'm working with the people that I work with, I expect excellence. I expect you to think a certain way because that's exactly how I think. So it depends on who it is. If I'm with a client, I'm very compassionate and I'm trying to understand them. When I'm with my team, I'm like, let's die on the line. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. We keep going, and it's a lot of hard work. So I think it's just learning to know who you are and learning to just love others as well.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Wow, we've been speaking to T.Y. Bello. Like I mentioned, she needs an introduction, and it's always a delight. There's so much to learn from her, especially as she expresses art in different forms. if there's one thing I wouldn't forget from this conversation, it's knowing who you are and knowing your space and focusing on your focus, if I can put it that way. So know who you are, because even in that is integrity. And so I'm very grateful to you for bringing in that dimension of integrity that we don't often talk about. Being true to yourself, and in that way, being true to your clients and others by knowing what you can handle and what you cannot handle. So thank you very much.
You're welcome.
All right, next stop. We promised earlier on at the beginning of, during the introduction, that we were going to have a musical break by the multiple award-winning, talented Nosa. Nosa is not just a musician who sings, like T.Y. Bello mentioned. He's very passionate about nation building as well. And he's going to be singing to us in the next few minutes. We hope that the words will speak to your mind and your soul, and will also prepare you for the next segment of the conference, which is bringing back all the speakers for a panel conversation. This is still the 7,000 Conference, the business edition.
Nigeria. Hallelujah. Okay, so I have this song called We Will Arise, dedicated to Nigeria. I wrote it in 2016, and I feel the need to sing it. You know, there's someone out there that needs to be inspired again, that his hope needs to be restored in Nigeria as a nation. Okay, guys, let's go. Time to surpass our heroes past. Time to address our errors past. Time to awaken this sleeping giant. The future's here for the taking. It's you and I. We will arise. We will arise. No nation stands by itself. No nation falls by itself. We are where we are today by the choices we have made, and we already have everything it takes to make Nigeria truly great. So the change we seek will come from deep inside. Deep inside, if we truly desire, you and I, we will arise. Yeah, we will arise. We will arise. We will arise. We will arise. We are the change, and we are the light. We are the light, oh, where only takes it's you and I. Oh, we will arise and take a stand, step by step and hand in hand. Yes, we will. Yes, we will. The nation's call, we will obey. We'll start with love and strength and faith. Yes, we will. Yes, we will. Yes, we will. Yes, we will. The nation's call, we will obey. We'll start with love and strength and faith. Yes, we will. Yes, we will. Yes, we will. The nation's call, we will obey. We'll serve with love and strength and faith. Yes, we will arise. We will arise and take a stand, step by step and hand in hand. Yes, we will. Yes, we will. We will arise. Jesus, see you through. I could always pray for you. as all of us they go our separate ways. Na good tori we go they tell when we see again of how God done bless me and bless you too. I go always pray for you. Thank you very much.
Till their own personal sacrifice or discomfort. I work on the enabling environment, on changing the business climate, and I work on a systemic intervention. But sometimes people come and their primary concern is their own business. This talk of mammon and all the Bible says about mammon, we think it's somebody else that loves mammon, and we are not so caught up. But many people, 98% of the people that I interact with are concerned with how their business is going to thrive, how they are going to make it. There's school fees, there's rent, there's feeding, there's clothes, there's position in society. Very, 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 very few people care about what the system needs. And Lagos is not Nigeria. Everybody in this hall is an elite. Because if you go around this country, you will see poverty. And you will see the numbers that Pastor Wally was talking about, the figures. The Vice President says that there's one thing that is in every nook and corner of this country, and that is abject poverty. But people are so removed from it, removed from the real issues, and concerned about how they will better their own self. Who is going to change Nigeria? The government can't do it alone. The Vice President cannot do it alone. The President cannot do it alone. Those in power, apart from the fact that there's a need for a lot of courage, a lot of competence, a lot of capabilities, the few people that really want to see this country change are too few. We are too few. We can't do it. Everybody sits and points a finger on who should do it. Someone else should go and do it. But every single body needs to get up and fight for the soul of our country, or we will never, we're just joking and talking. Unless you take action, we will never change. The only way to change, and it does not exclude prayer, because that is where you get the instruction. But Esther did. Esther sacrificed. Esther was ready to die. The people that are ready to make this country work systemically for everybody are ready to lay down everything. I personally could be doing a lot of other things. The Vice President could be doing a lot of other things. The few other people that I vouch for in government, and by the way, you don't have to be in government, but it sure would be a good idea to have a card, to go to the ward, to register to vote, to actually do it, to actually take actions, because we are so good at pointing at what everybody else should do. And then we wonder why Nigeria is the same.
when I first, had the conversation. So first of all, I prayed about it long and hard, and I felt like God was leading me to do that. But the most important person to speak to after God was my wife. All the married people in the house, are you with me? So I needed to get Madam's permission. And when I said, hey babe, I feel like God is leading me to do this. I feel like this is something that I need to do. And she said, honey, I love you. I know your heart. And I know if you go in there, you're going to want to do a good job. But politics and governance in Nigeria is dirty and it is dangerous. And I don't want anything that will soil you or harm you. In other words, I don't want anything that will ruin your reputation or pose a threat to your life. And my response to her was this: yes, politics and governance in Nigeria is dirty and it is dangerous, but it will always be dirty and dangerous and dark if the light refuses to get involved in it. It will always be bad if good people avoid it. And so I said, I remember this saying, and I read it once by Plato, and it's always stuck in my head. And it says, the punishment for not being involved in politics is that you will end up being ruled by your inferiors. I can paraphrase that to say the punishment for us not getting involved in the affairs of our country is that we'll end up being ruled by in Plato said inferiors, let's say by dark people, by dirty people, by people who don't have our best interests at heart. Now, I caught a glimpse of just how dark that scene is while I was campaigning. And I'll tell you a little story. On the day that we had our rally, okay, this was close to the end of the campaign, almost a week or two before elections. I'm sitting in my house, praying and going over my notes for the speech that I needed to give. And a staff member comes into my office in my house. And he says, boss, there's an elderly lady at the gate. Now, they know, if I'm not expecting you and I don't give the word, they won't allow the person to come in. So I said, who is the person? They said, I don't know. I said, is it an auntie? They said, they've never seen her before. I said, well, tell the person, because we were trying to ginger people to go to the rally grounds. I said, tell the lady that the only place anybody can see me
with integrity. And I want to say a big thanks to everyone who's logged on YouTube. Thank you very much for following the conversation and being a part of this conference. Now, we are going into the panel conversation, and we had mentioned earlier on that if you had a question you'd like to ask specifically to our speakers, now is the time. We'd encourage you, if there's any area, perhaps a bit more personal, you'd like for them to touch on, this is the time. Now, I'll be moderating this session with Oyeyemi Adeobigbe. And before I hand over to Oyeyemi to start with the questions, it's interesting, and I find it quite poetic, that this conference is hosted here in the beautiful nation of Nigeria. Did you know that 2020 Transparency Index report, Nigeria ranked 2 bottom in West Africa for corruption? We also ranked 149 out of 180. Now, we have had 3 speakers who we consider as part of the 7,000. And what we're doing today is hopefully igniting hope that despite the reports out there, there are people who are living and doing business with integrity. And we hope that this will also draw in more people who make up that decision to do business with integrity. We're looking forward to the numbers changing. We're looking forward in our own lifetime to be number 1 and displacing Denmark as the most transparent country in the world. And so join us for this conversation. We're monitoring the comment sections on YouTube. So share with us any question. And Oyeyemi would start with the panelists.
Thank you so much, Ayo. And I must add that if you did not have your notepad with you before, now might be the best time to get it out with your pen, because I'm sure there would be a lot of gems coming from our panelists this evening. We've had our panelists give us their personal experiences, and we're going to be sharing a meal this evening. And I will start with you, Mr. Maduka. We talked about the cost of integrity, and recently there was a video where you narrated a story and an experience where you were literally shafted and you had to pay a price that you had to pay a cost that you didn't even create, but because of your honor and your integrity, you chose to do that. If you could, sir, could you walk us through that moment briefly, and then the lessons that you learned, and because Mr. Kirumi said something about doing business the right way. The right way means different things for different people. For many people who heard that story, what you did was not the right way, but that was the right way to you. So could you just walk us through the story and then tell us what is the standard?
Okay, I am an individual who never like to give energy to anything that is negative. So I'm a forward-looking guy. I would like to make it very brief to simply say integrity should be our second nature, the way you live, act, and behave every day. Integrity for me, like I said before, is something you will do if you get to know it will never be discovered and you still do the right thing. You need to do what is required in every circumstance. Don't just say you've done your best, because your best most of the time is not what is required. And to give other people a chance and make it very easy, integrity should be your lifestyle. You never know what you believe until that thing is subjected to test. You can claim you have integrity. You can say anything you want to do. Talking from a Christian point of view, God tested all his children. Abraham, our father, starting from the Garden of Eden, he subject everybody to a test. God will not accept your faith until he put it to trial. It's not as if he did not know. So everybody have a chance. Even Jesus, his son, was subjected to test. God will test your appetite for natural food, your appetite for sexual desire, your appetite for amassing power, your appetite for fame and popularity. All of these are going to be subjected to test. So you can only claim this is who you are, but you need to go back to drawing board when whatever you claim is subjected to test and you convince yourself you pass it. That's how I just want to summarize that. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. Until you cannot claim to have integrity until you're tested. Very powerful. Thank you. I see the questions coming through on YouTube. We'll come to them very shortly, but please allow us to go around and then we'll go to the questions. Thank you. Now, Mr. Lolo Akiumi, I know that in 2010, I beg your pardon, you were appointed as the chairman of APCON by the then President Goodluck Jonathan. We asked a question earlier on during my conversation with Morenike as to how you build a culture of integrity, not just for yourself, but in your workplace as well. Beyond that, you were thrust into a position where you had to deal with people from different walks of lives, with different value systems, and also reporting perhaps at the time to the government of the day. How did you stay grounded, ensure that you didn't enrich yourself through that appointment? Because for a number of people, government appointment equals I have made it in life. So how did you handle that situation?
I think I'd had what you would call a dry run before the APCON appointment. When the late Dora Koyili was the minister, I'd been appointed the pioneer CEO of the Nigerian Rebranding Project. Good people, great nation. Except that I didn't go anywhere, and don't let me talk about that here. That's a story for another day. So the most important thing I needed to really get familiar with was navigating how government worked. And I promise you, you don't want to know. You don't want to know at all. But again, I was in a very familiar territory. Advertising is all I've done my entire life. Prior to then, I'd served on APCON at committee level. I'd been the president of the Advertising Association. I knew what the issues were. So it was like, look, you know what the issues are? You have an opportunity to make a difference. And then to put in practice some of your professional, some of your personal beliefs. There were sometimes conflicts, and I'll tell you how. We run two advertising agencies. And when I was chairman of APCON, the two of them ran foul of APCON law. Not directly, but because our clients acted in error. So everybody was watching what I was going to do. And each of the agencies was fined, I think, about 2 or 3 million naira. I can't remember. And we paid. Having done that, nobody else would have an excuse and say they wouldn't pay. You know, a standard had been set. And many things. It was time to go to Cannes for the annual advertising festival. And they came to me and said, we'd like to buy a ticket for your wife. And I said, why? She's not a staff of APCON. And somebody said, oh, so, and I said, no. But to show you that I wouldn't deprive my wife, I would buy a ticket. It was easy. A ticket could have been bought and nobody would know and nothing would happen. But you know, you had to carry into the appointment the things you always talked about, because a lot of people would be watching and taking notes and watching and taking, and then one day they would say, oh, please stop talking about integrity. Didn't they buy a ticket for your wife and stuff and things like that? So there were challenges, there were opportunities to put into practice the things you always talked about, and I thoroughly enjoyed the tenure.
That's deep.
Yeah.
I'm now thinking of all the places that I may know it. Maybe my husband. But that's really deep. Thank you for sharing that experience.
Right. Okay, so speaking of government, sir, people say that Nigeria as an environment is not suitable for business at all. And I would like both you to speak and then Morenike to speak to it, because you are almost 30 years, she is 8 years, so let's say time has changed the experience. But people repeatedly say, and that is the reason that people give every time they break the integrity code. It is because it is Nigeria. It can be done right, or everyone is on the take. And people who ordinarily won't play tricks would use, there's a scripture that I actually hear people say, oh, that the children of the world are wiser than you, so you should learn from them, that even Jesus gave that scripture, right? And you hear people saying things like that, and they disguise tricks as tact. Is there really something wrong with the Nigerian environment? Maybe. But is that the only story about it? How have you navigated, and what are the lessons that you think, or what are the things you think people need to emphasize as they walk through these quote-unquote landmines that most people always reference? So when you're, okay, Morenike.
Okay, all right. Thank you for even allowing me to start, so that I would not keep saying, oh, what he, based off of what he said. So let me just quickly say my own points. Okay, so for me, I would say that first off, right, as much as you can, right, try to do the things that are expected of you as as an individual and as a business owner. So what do I mean by that? I think the average Nigerian already expects that there's no way, like the way the economy has been programmed, bribery and corruption is almost like is normal, right? In fact, so for example, I don't want to start calling some names, but I'm not sure there's anyone that will go to, say, maybe passport office, for example, and pay the amount, the real amount that is supposed to be, because they will frustrate your efforts, right? Even after you even pay the one that you're not supposed to pay, you are still going to. Do you understand? So naturally, right, the environment that we are in is not even favorable sometimes, right? But I would say that for me as an individual, as much as I can, right, obeying and abiding and finding the way. So I'll give an example. When I was going to, so we started 8 years ago, right? So I think 5 years ago, I just sat down and I said, you know what? I know that tax people haven't come to meet me yet. I'm still a small business. But it will get to a point where, these things will come up, right? And so what I did was I then engaged like a tax consultant. And I said, see, look, I've not been paying my taxes for the past 3 years. What can we do, right? And then how can I start getting it right? And so obviously, like, we had to go back, get an auditor and all of that, do the management accounts, and then, did an estimate and paid for 3 years, and then it was so much money, right? And at that point, it was like, nobody's sending you a message, but I just decided to do that. So it was things that, I decided that if tax people come, I know that, I will not be giving excuses. And guess what? They came like a few weeks ago, right? And the money was not small, right? But thankfully, because we had records, I don't know whether we wanted to test us, or maybe they didn't have their own records. And thankfully, obviously, like, because we've had like a tax consultant for like 5 years, and this is why we have been paying you. Yeah, come on, this is now that you have to do your work. And so obviously, like, we had to show them the records, everything, and it's not like, you see. So if we had not done that, obviously, we will be at the point where we'll now be at their mercy and say, okay, so what do we do, and there. So as much as you can, right, try, do everything around to do your own part, so that you will not now be the one. For example, you don't have driver's license, but you know that, you can always bribe the policeman on the express, right? So things like that, even as individuals, making sure that everything, that we do is on point.
Thank you so much. Sir.
I'll be brief. See, I went for a network conference in Johannesburg. 124 of us from several countries, heads of countries. And the first night, it was cocktail time. Have cocktail before dinner. And the discussion, one way or the other, moved to corruption. And of course, everybody turned their attention, and they went on, and they became more boisterous the more alcohol they had. So at some point, I asked them, I said, let me speak. You've all been speaking about Nigeria. I said, Ian, do you have prisons in your country? He said, oh, of course I do. How about you? And they didn't know where I was going. And I said, which people are in those prisons? Nigerians? They said, no. I said, the problem is, corruption is not a Nigerian problem alone. It's just that we have approached and tackled it very, very wrongly. And I went on to lecture them. The following day, maybe I had just 2 people. All of them avoided me. But the point I'm trying to make is, and I want to go back to your question. Doing business in Nigeria, the opportunities are there. The challenges are there. If it wasn't so, you would not have so many Asians still struggling, rushing to come in here. And except you really have a friend at immigration, you would have no idea. Everybody, in spite of whatever they are saying, everybody still wants to come here. We've got a huge population. If all you produce is blade, imagine if just 50 million people were to buy your blade. So all we need to do is get it right, initiate new value standards. We don't even need to be perfect. There's no country, not even Sweden, not even Denmark, those countries with very high integrity, rating. Let's just change the way we look at things, the way we do things, and it's possible. We were going to do it under Dora, poor lady, but it didn't happen. It was frustrated and all. But yes, Nigeria is not a bad country, and I'm not saying it because I'm here and because I'm a Nigerian. We have loads of challenges, but trust me, if we could just improve, just 25% improvement on the way things are now, it's a fantastic place to do business.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you. And thanks for talking about rebranding, because I think that TY has a huge role to play in that aspect. We all do, to be fair, because everyone has work to do. But in terms of perception, because a number of these indices and figures that come up are based on perception. How do you think, especially as being in the public space and being an ambassador, public figure, we can change this perception of Nigeria being a corrupt place or we lacking integrity? How can we change that perception?
I think the way to change the perception is realizing that it's not something that not only needs to be changed as a collective, but is from person to person and with each opportunity. Every chance you get to do business, especially internationally, because I'm from Nigeria, every time I get to, do a transaction with someone from another country, I am so mindful of the fact that Nigeria is written on top of my head, that I must make sure that everything is done in a way that they have something incredible to say afterwards. They may never come to Nigeria. They may never meet another Nigerian, but the fact that you've met me should make you excited about the nation. So I think perception isn't something that, I as a person can fix. I mean, I can write songs to inspire, I can create work that inspires, and we can inspire change, but we must start from ourselves.
Excellent. Thank you very much. We'll go on to our YouTube questions, and I'm glad because we have a question for each person. I have to mention that we have Dr. Jumoke Oduwole in the comment section, special mention, because that's one woman in government who is very passionate about perception in terms of not just perception, but getting the work done. That's the chair of the Presidential Enabling Business Environment Council. So thank you very much, Dr. Oduwole. Now, I'll go to each, there's a question for each person, like I mentioned. I'll start with Dr. Cosmas Maduka. I'll say all the questions so that we can then just go one after the other. Asobele Dare says on YouTube, during the panel session, or he says during this period, what role does your life partner have in doing business with integrity, using the example of Job? I saw that and I laughed. It says, when things were not going well, his wife encouraged him to curse God. He still withstood his ground on his conviction as anyone. Who does business, or what does business with the role of ensuring that your partner is aligned with your values and your views? And I think it's perfect for you, sir, because I know that your wife is very active in business with you. And then for another one for Dr. Maduka says, apart from the lessons you so graciously shared on integrity, is there more from the Japanese you could share that has helped you through the years as a businessman? And then we have for Mr. Akiwumi. This is from Choice Okweku, I commend your bravery and confidence in business. What structure and principles would you say help you stay this brave, keep stepping out and aiming for greater heights? So structures, principles, to break it down for us. For T.Y. Bello, the question from Brenda Unu goes, you talked about knowing what you can do and passing on the work. What is the place of collaboration? Can't you sometimes collaborate with the person and learn in the process? This person does not want to really give up everything. And then Choice says also for you, please, can you share with us the same structured path, process of consistent self-discovery and the likes? For Mrs. Mullane, Choice, thank you so much for being so active in the comment section. Says, you seem like a very good and calm person. Have you had people try to take advantage of your person and values? How do you deal with it wisely and still come up strong? So we can start with Dr. Maduka, please.
Okay, let me take the first one, and that's where is your life partner placed in your life in business? Let me say that it's key, it's very important. A lot of people, average Nigeria, shy away from partnership. We are so afraid of it because of the same issue we are discussing, integrity, the challenges that come along with it. But if you also listen to some of the business experts, including Bill Gates, one of the richest guy in the world, Bill Gates support partnership. He went into different partnership, including partnering with a direct competitor, which is Apple Computer. You don't want to, get into that. I did about 4 partnerships that broke up before I partnered with my wife. The first with my senior brother. And we worked together, but within 6 months, we differed in ideology. We couldn't continue, we parted way. I teamed up with another friend of mine called Edwin Uzochukwu from one part of my village. We worked together, it didn't work well, we parted way, and I partnered again with another guy called Benson. and then finally was David Mosu, and we completed Cos Dave, the combination of my name and his name, David. So by 1980, Cos Dave gave way, and that's how we, Cos Charis, were born. Cos Charis is a name of Cosmas and Charity. My wife is Charity, so we carved it. So we didn't call it Cos Charity so that it doesn't look local. For quite a number of years, a lot of people thought it was a Greek company. Many people really didn't know it's a Nigerian-owned institution. But it's just two young people that made themselves under 20 and fell in love and, get married at our 20s and work together. And so many times people think this partnership, is it that you brought 1 million and your wife brought 1 million? How did it work? If you understand it, you just need to know that your wife played a very important role in your life. You must continue to ask your wife to keep your channel open. If your wife is in disagreement with you, God will not hear your prayer. Your wife can shut you down. That's how powerful women is. So you need to really get her to buy into your vision, share it with her, and then if she makes a believer out of it, if you follow the Bible principle, young men were to see vision, elderly men was to dream. Young people want to see things happen. They could see, beyond today and want things happen now. When you are 60, 70, like the age I'm getting into now, I'll start dreaming. So my children will need to carry on the vision, because at this age you'll be saying, I wish this could have been. It's all dream. But the Bible also says in Joel that the young ladies, the ladies will do what? They will prophesy. So in a difficult time in your life, that's why I tell a lot of young people, you mustn't have all the money in the world to get married, but let that young man share with you where he's taking you to. Don't just, I'm sorry to say, some people may not like this, but I tell a lot of young ladies, if you marry a man who has no job, no career where he's going, you are not spiritual, no matter how much you speak in tongue. Sit down with him, let him tell you where he's going. You may not have everything, then you support him. Because you got to be behind him to continue to prophesy with him. Oh, you told me you are going to do this. Let's go do it. Let's go do it. Let's go do it. So the woman continued to prophesy to the man, get energy to keep you going. So the wife played a very important role in the success of that business. I wouldn't have been who I am without Charity. It was great blessing from God that she joined hand with me, and we built the institution today that is called Cos Charis. Finally, the last question is there any more thing to say about the Japanese? A whole lot to say about the Japanese. The art of discipline, okay? Unprecedented discipline. A Japanese will collect money from you, government money, in a toll gate. For every vehicle that passes, he will bow down to collect government money. Not because you gave him a tip, because it's a taboo to give a tip in Japan. If they get angry, if you annoy Japanese worker, they don't down tools like Nigeria do. They overproduce. They create you a problem because Japanese run zero stock. No product is made to start looking for customer. There's an order you are producing to support. So help them to manage their cash flow. But if you ever get them angry and they want to let you know they are not happy, if you ask them to produce 10, they will produce 15 or 20. Contrary to the way we do it here, we down tools and tell you, let the customers not come again. So that's why you never hear the crisis of strike. They have a unique way of living, some quality, and that's why it's difficult, actually, for a lot of people to preach to a Japanese. I spoke to a Japanese guy. He told me, why are you preaching to me? These people say, this person says he's a Christian. This person says, look at what he's doing. Look at what he's doing. I don't do those things now. So what do I need to repent from? But understanding this thing in their own self-righteous. So it become, and if you notice, religion had not made a great impact because the people built on a very strong culture. This culture of respect, you don't flaunt wealth. It's a taboo, no matter anywhere, still check till today. The Japanese don't have culture of tip. they won't demand, they will not receive. It's an insult to give, to offer anybody money. So, there are a lot of things. You need to read some of their books and study them. I met them very early in my life, and like some of you went to school. People like me, everywhere you've been in life, for me, it's a school. I learn by observation. So, keying with them, I learned a whole lot of things from them. I just say, wow, this thing will work in my content. Let me come back and implement this. And I found that I was doing them, and it was working like a magic, because, it's consistent anywhere you find it. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Wow, thank you. That's a masterclass right there. All right. So, okay, let's have a meal. Okay, Mr. Akiomi, please.
Okay, I think your question wants me to talk about structure and principle. And let me talk about principle first. I left where I was working. I think I was 28 or so. Fairly high up, an executive director. But I left because I wasn't pleased with certain things. And I thought to myself, I'd fought and quarreled enough. Maybe I should leave and all that and all that. Eventually, God spoke to me, and I left, and the rest of it, they say, is history. In terms of structure, one of the decisions, I took a few decisions. I wasn't going to take my former employer staff. I wasn't going to tamper with their clients and all of those things. But more than ever, I looked at the entire industry. It's one thing to have a vision. It's another thing to develop a strategy for it. And I said, look, this industry, this is where they are, especially in terms of staff welfare, staff remuneration. The best payers, the best employers in terms of remuneration at that time was the banking industry. So we chose to match them from day one. Where the money was coming from, I tell you the truth, we didn't even know, not that we had the money, but I remember we chose to benchmark against Zenith, and we started and, took a lot of, we were young, we were almost like rebels. We had very little to lose, but we had a very strong base, and all of what we were doing were driven, by spiritual considerations. As Christians, we were not going to cheat any staff. We were going to be fair. Quite a host of things that we chose and decided we were not going to cheat on taxes. And, the point you made is very relevant. We were not tax experts, but we employed the services of experts so that we would not cheat, but you could, there is tax dodging, there is tax avoidance, and all of those cliches. So where we weren't very sure, we always worked with consultants that guided us. And so we moved on from step to step. We made mistakes, no doubt, but we made sure that we were able to learn from those mistakes. And, God was with us. I always like to say that, because during the period, other agencies started and faltered and failed, even within our group. And I always like to make the point, we lost 2 agencies. We started 2 other agencies, the same set of people, the same set of principles, the same structure, the same everything. But then, as far back as then, we lost either 30 or 32 million on each agency. It didn't work. So you've got to always talk about the divine factor. And I also like to tell people that, Mr. Maduka made the point now. Some of the most successful, if you look at the global list of the 100 richest people, you may not find a Christian. Some principles predate Christianity. Everything in the Old Testament is Judaism. But some things are fair. If you do them right, you get the right results. If you do them wrong, you get also, you cannot say because I'm a Christian, I can trample on everybody's right. It's not going to work. In fact, that is an antithesis to Christianity. So you've got to get it right. You've got to integrity. All of this, of course, are are part of integrity, doing the right thing at the right time, and all of that. So we've continued to invest in the culture. We've continued to invest in the system. Where we need help, we bring people together, use a facility like this over 2-3 days, fine-tune. Where we are weak, we get help. We had foreign affiliation, so many things. So far, from one company we went into, a few others. If you take away the ones that failed and we lost money, I say that it hasn't been too bad.
Well, thank you. Thanks for the encouragement. So it's not you lose some, or you win even more. I think that's very important for us to and be prepared to lose some, but also be prepared to win as well. So we don't end and think, oh my goodness, I'm about to lose.
Can I ship one word on the principle?
Yes,
Just
sir.
one word. Now, listen, this is where many of us Christians, especially the young generation, get it wrong. And that's basically to say, forget about this Old Testament. We are not under the law. The laws are made to protect you. If you understand principle are laws that are inherent in God's word. This microphone don't need a battery. The designer that built it made it to work with battery. He doesn't want battery. He needs battery. In other words, he can't function without battery. So, no matter how you charge it, you need to put a battery on it for it to work. Very simple. If you take a seed, there is a law that is inherent in a seed. And that seed has potential, perpetual life. If you keep that seed on top of the table and speak in tongue every day, pray, and fast for 21 days, and for sometimes 41 days, the seed will remain there, will not do anything. If you obey the law, whether you are Japanese, you are an Hausa man, you are Islamic man, you are Buddhist, regardless of your religion, race, and creed, if you get to a land that is fertile, that has moisture, and put that seed on the ground, you don't need to pray. If you like, you can pray, it's plus. But put it on that ground. After 1 week pass, you will see the leaves spring out of it. Because it has a perpetual law. The potential will remain there until you obey the law. Now, if that seed is coming up and you put something on top of it, the law in that seed will make his head go this way and shut up because it is a life that is given. If you use a tree and you plant concrete around it, give it 5 or 8 years, that tree will grow and the root of it will break that concrete. When you obey law, when you obey principle, everything nature throws against you will give way. They will all cooperate for your own success.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Fantastic. I think Tiwa should answer her question.
Oh, yes.
And maybe I should tweak that question slightly. So in your space, the spirit carries because it's creative space. So discipline is actually antithetical to the culture. Because that's the message. And even, I think as a people, we've internalized it for that space. And the reason I think it's very important, we are growing our capacity as a nation. And we are diversifying our commodities. We have little time on oil, right? And the creative space is one space that is going to unlock the opportunities that we have in Nigeria. Currently, the creative space is not prepared to launch us into that future that we want because one, it's as the spirit wills, it's unsophisticated, and there is very little preparation that goes into it because it just came upon me. You hear all those things. So how, for you've been able to weave it in a very, 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 I must say, strategic way. It looks very unintentional, but we know the truth that it is not. So what are those things that we need to begin to see in the creative spaces that are the structures and the principles that we would need?
Okay, so I think For many years, whenever I heard the word structure and systems, I would just recoil in horror because I just wanted to be free and I didn't want anything to put me in bondage. But as I started growing, I realized that I needed the structure to actually really be free. And then whenever I found out that my freedom was being stolen, and how I know freedom is being stolen is when I'm working till 4 a.m. every day, then I know it's because there's a structural problem somewhere that needs to be fixed, and there's a systemic problem that needs to be fixed. So we do realize that as creatives, and that takes us back to my first question, it's about collaboration. It's convergence, it's when ideas meet. I am creative. I will never build structure to save my life, but there are people who do it by nature. And so I have those people in my life who would come together with me and then say, hey, this is how you're going to have to do this, and this is how you're going to have to do that, and this is, do you understand? I can never, spontaneously do those things. I need other people to put those things in place for me. And also, it's the same thing. I'm going to go back to, I'm trying to merge the two questions together, but I think I'm just going to address them one at a time. So, of course, you do need structure, and you do need systems. But even when you are weak in that area, that is where collaboration comes in. Or sometimes it might not be collaboration, it might just be hiring the right person to come in as a consultant to help you, With regards to the other lady who was saying, why would you give recommendation to another business when you can collaborate? And that is, so it's not necessarily, when I talked about making recommendations for someone else, it's not because you don't want the money. It's just that you are limited as a human being. And if you took every opportunity that came your way, then you will not have room for the real ones. So you have to know what it is that you're expecting and looking forward to. And you must make room for those things. Because if you don't make room for the things that you really want, and because of fear or lack of confidence in your ability to deserve or your ability to finally meet you with that opportunity, you take everything that comes, you will never, ever have enough room to even have the accident or the coincidence that makes for the real opportunity, because you'll be so busy that you can't even have enough freedom to find the real thing.
I like where you took us because it's a question that's heavy on my mind. I'm a lawyer. I deal with businesses every day. A lot of entrepreneurs, and Veronica, you probably can relate to what I'm saying. Once they recognize fast growth, they want to go for the kill. Like, this is the opportunity. Let me take everything now. And you see people making decisions that they go dizzy and just spin out instead of steady, paced growth, right? And it's becoming the character of many small businesses. I was speaking with Mr. Maduka earlier, and he said the global lifespan for many small businesses is, say, 5 years, right? But his business started, and we must not miss the point he made, that it was started by him and his wife. So that's like a family business, has hit a record of 44 years. His business is 30 years. And despite all of the changes, Veronica's business is 8 years, so that's even a feat. You passed the test already, right? So, and that's one thing. So if our businesses must last, sir, what's your advice for people building businesses? How do you approach growth? How do you pace your growth? How much is too much? How do you measure? How do you draw those lines?
There is no one answer or response to that. There are a zillion and one businesses, all over the world, and no one type of business is like the other. Banking is not in any way similar to what our sister does so well with the camera and all that and all that. I always say that one of the best things you need to do is, not necessarily in that order, determine what you want to do. You can't do everything, number one, and you can't do everything that somebody else is doing because they are successful in it. There must be certain talents, certain abilities, certain experiences, whatever in you that you can then put within a business structure. And then there are certain things that you also must follow. You've got to be well capitalized in the business of today. You need skills, you need knowledge, you need people. Two people have said it here today, Mr. Maduka and TY, that look, where, in fact, she said it as well, where we have the competence, we go. Where we don't, we rent, hire, whatever, to support the dream, the vision that we have. All of those things keep going on. Where you, instead of investing, instead of starting a new type of business, you can acquire, which is what, you are in that kind of business, buy over, do so many things. So there is no single rule about, if we are talking of success factors, there are many, some of which we see physically, some are spiritual. And the spiritual ones are also very, very, very important. And also, let me allow other people make comments on this as well.
All right, Wenke, your question.
Okay, so quickly, that question is very interesting because before I started, and I'll answer this question based from the business angle. I thought I was 100% calm until I started business, and so because you meet different people, right? And because I'm protecting the brand, right? It's almost like I will fight, to protect the brand. And so, yes, I'm calm, and all of that. But I would say another thing that has helped as well, because I work with, majority of people that I work with, they're way older than I am. Some people 10 years, 20 years, 30 years older than I am. And, there's the tendency for me to think that they're, looking down on me or taking me for granted. But I think that respect is one thing that has helped, because I respect everyone that works with me, no matter who you are, because obviously I cannot, make a strand of hair. God has created somebody, so why would I look down on someone? So I respect everyone, regardless of who you are, gatesman, driver, whatever. And I realized that, I also earn their respect. And so for someone to, take advantage of me is really, I think it's difficult. And then when it happens, I would only say that if someone is trying to give me offense, I would just not take it, right? Because I can decide to take offense or not to take offense. And then sometimes as well. So I just think, in a nutshell, I'll just say that for me, respect has actually helped a long way. I would have, artisans that are like I said, way older than me, and they'll be telling some of my colleagues in the office that they are afraid to come and speak to me. And I don't shout, but because they know that, they've probably done something wrong, and they know that naturally I'm the kind of person that would respect you regardless. They just know that they'll come and report themselves to me. So that has really helped me. Again, I'll go back to it and say that for those that are being naughty, my life is very easy. After I've warned you once, twice, 3 times, 5 times, you get to a point, and I just tell you that, we cannot work together anymore for my own peace and sanity, right? And again, like they say, soldier come, soldier go, barrack remain. I'm the barrack, right? So yes.
I wish this didn't have to come to an end. We've had a masterclass from Mr. Maduka on the Japanese model of doing business. We've learned from Mr. Akiwumi how to see. We've learned from TY how to protect. We've learned from Renike how to respect. And just in case you have forgotten, honor, discipline, integrity, keeping your word. All of these things are actually the things that drive our business. I know you don't want to go, but we have to go to bed and we have to release them. So thank you everyone for joining us today. You would always be able to access the content and follow the Alternative Business School. I will now be throwing you over to our esteemed convener, Dr. Esther Longe, as we close. Thank you everyone.
Hi, my name is Esther Lunge, and I would like to share with you the testimony of how I survived a plane crash. On the 29th of October 2006, my life as I knew it changed forever. I was in Abuja waiting for a return flight to Sokoto, where I was serving as a youth corper in the Federal Airport Authority of Nigeria, FAAN. I was a duty flight announcer, which sounds more glamorous than it actually was. On this day, I'd never been to Abuja before, but because or by virtue of the fact that I was serving in the airport, I just looked around and I was looking for frequent flyers to see when they would get up, so I would just go along with them. As we came out of the airport, about to board the plane, the northern heat gave way to torrential rain. And I remember thinking to myself that, oh, can the pilot fly in this weather? But then I also thought to myself that they probably don't cancel flights every time that it rains. And so we got on board. Now, I used to joke with myself that, patience was not one of my virtues. And so I really liked to sit at the front of the plane. But on this day, it wasn't an option because the flight was full. And so they had given me a seat in the middle. And so there I was contemplating where my seat was. And then I heard somebody call my full name at the time, Esther Kema Amoda. And I wondered who knew me on that flight. I looked up and it happened to be the other Esther. So there was another Esther who was serving at the airport. I was with the airport authority. She was with the airline ADC. And so she was sitting right at the back of the plane. And so normally for someone who was already uncomfortable sitting at the middle of the plane, it was very unusual for me to go and say hi to her at the back of the plane, and not just say hi, but actually sit down beside her. But I say something told me now with hindsight, I know that it was the Holy Spirit. And so I sat down beside her, and that morning, before I had set off from my fellow corpor's house, I had opened my devotional to read the Bible reading for the day, and it was James 3 from verse 14 to 17 that says, in paraphrase, it says, who are you that says today you will do this or tomorrow you will do that? That life is like a vapor. And so as anybody who is about to take a trip, you pray and say, oh Lord, let my life not be like a vapor, but you don't read it thinking that anything out of the ordinary is going to happen to you. And so I sat down beside her and I prayed, especially remembering, my reading from the morning, but we always thought that it was going to be a regular flight. And so we took off. And this was around like 10:40 in the morning, and we're gaining altitude. All of a sudden, the plane dropped. And we thought it was normal turbulence, and so everybody was shouting Jesus, shouting Allah, but we didn't think anything was going to happen. Shortly after that again, the plane dropped again. By this time, even though it was 11 o'clock in the morning, the emergency lights had come on in the plane. Outside was dark. The Christians were shouting Jesus, the Muslims were shouting Allah, children were crying. It was a little bit of mayhem. But still, we thought it was just really bad turbulence, and we're waiting for the pilot to regain control of the plane. Shortly after, I look out of the window, and for lack of a better way to describe it, I hear a loud bow. I look back in front of me, and I'm sitting exactly the way I was sitting in the air, just that in front of me now was grass. The plane had crashed. Now people ask me, did you black out? What happened? And I always say to them that before that day I believed in God, but that day I believed in the power of angels, because literally the same way I was sitting in the air is how I was landed on the ground. And you would say, okay, maybe all of us that were in that segment of the plane, that's how we landed, but that wasn't true, because Esther, who was sitting beside me, the impact of the crash flung her somewhere else. And so it was like a dream. People always ask me, how did it feel? And I say it felt a little bit like a cartoon where you're like, I'm okay. But I did not know where I was, and I wasn't quite sure what was happening. And so because I like to travel light, I had my hand luggage under my seat, and it was still there, thanks be to God. At the time I had the Motorola Razr. I don't know if you remember that phone. So the clip was in my belt hole, and the phone was on the side. Picked up the phone, put it back in the clip, and then I started to feel my way out of where I was. As I was doing that, I heard somebody shout, oh, somebody help me, and it turned out to be the other Esther. So the impact had flung her somewhere else. And so I unhooked her from her seat, and she had a dislocated hip, and then we made our way out of the debris of the plane. Now we're in the plane, and we had no idea where the plane had gone, how far it had gone before this happened. So I didn't know if I was in Kafanchan or in Kebbi. All I knew was that I was in the middle of a field somewhere, and it was raining, and I was just like, God, what is going on? Esther, when she saw that I had my bag with me, she said, she had valuables in her own bag, and so she went back into the debris of the plane to go find her possessions. As we were still trying to figure out what was going on, I saw three ladies, one on top of each other, and the one on top was strapping the other two beneath her. These turned out to be the daughters of the Kogi state governor. Now, there was also another guy who was sitting on the floor, spread-eagled, and he was just looking. And I remember thinking to myself that, Uncle, please help now. We're all in shock here. It was after the fact that I realized that there was nothing he could do because both of his legs were broken. And so I was trying to remove the lady on top, and I saw things that I never want to see again in terms of bone showing and all of that stuff. And I remember her crying out in pain. And I said to her, you're alive. They can fix your body, but thank God at least that you are alive. Pulled her off, and then the one in the middle, because she was Hausa origin, her wrapper had gotten entangled in her, because that's their native dress, isn't it? So her wrapper had gotten entangled with her seatbelt. So unhooked her, pulled her off, and then I went back to where we were standing. There was a lady who was standing, her hand, and her leg were broken, and she was crying about her brother. And I genuinely thought at the time that what had happened was the plane had broken in half. So we were on one side, and there was another side that had other people who were in a similar position as us. Because, the northern tradition is that, the men sit in front and the women sit at the back. So I just thought that they were on one side and we were on another. And I was like, you're alive. I'm sure they'll find your brother and your brother will be fine. But that was not to be the case. Shortly after, we saw villagers come out, and we realized then, because of what they had said, that the plane had crashed outside of the airport. But the people in the airport did not know that the plane had crashed just outside. And so the villagers ran into the airport to let them know that the plane had crashed, and also to find transportation for those of us that were able to walk. And so they came with a pickup truck to take me, the other Esther, and this Hausa lady that was crying for her brother, because we were the three that could actually walk on foot. So they took us in the pickup truck, and it was probably one of the worst rides of my life, because we're in the jarring, muddy field, and I just kept getting bumped about. And we got to the airport hospital, and I had an irrational desire to be as far away from the airport as possible. Because I got to the airport and it was mayhem. They were bringing in dead bodies. It was just crazy. And so I called my friends who had literally dropped me an hour or so before, and I said, this is what has happened. Please come and get me. I need to be out of here. And so they came to pick me up and took me to a private hospital, where the first thing that they did was to put me on a morphine drip because I had a banging headache. I remember one of my friends calling me, and I made small talk with her because I didn't necessarily want to let her know that I had just been in such an accident. I remember also my mother calling me, and my mother did not know I was on the plane, and so she said, I heard that there's something happening, a plane that was bound for Sokoto crashed in Abuja. The airport must be crazy. And I said, yeah, the airport is crazy. I couldn't tell her that, her daughter was on that flight. And so I stayed in the airport, in the hospital, taking the drip and everything. But then it became apparent that I would have to go to the military hospital where the survivors were being kept, so that they would not think that I had died and they just didn't find my body. And in fact, earlier Wikipedia entries say, Esther Amoda, one of the plane crash survivors, deemed dead, now alive. And so I went to the military hospital where they were keeping the survivors. And just to put it in context, of the 105 people that were on the plane, only 9 survived. And of the 9 that survived, only 1 didn't have any injuries, and that was me, to the glory of God. And so I was in the military hospital, and I was kept there for 3 days to make sure that I did not have any internal injuries, which I did not. And so the next morning, I wake up about 4 a.m. and CNN, is carrying the story, and I see what happened. I see the part of the plane that survived, and I am weeping. I am in tears. Because if you remember, I said I thought that the plane had broken in half, but that was not what had happened. In fact, the only part of the plane that survived was the tail end of the plane, and literally where the mouth of that, the part that survived hit the floor is where I was sitting. And I wept. I remember a nurse saying, "Why are you crying? You should be happy that you're alive." I'm like, that's why I'm crying. I'm crying because, I'm happy that I'm alive. And the ADC people, when they came on their courtesy visit, they said literally that was the only part of the plane that was intact. Everything else was broken pieces and broken bodies, and it was very overwhelming. And so I was there, and the question now became, okay, Esther, you are in Abuja now. Are you going to go back to Sokoto, which is 9 hours by road, or are you going to go back to Lagos, which is also 9 hours by road? Well, my mom made the decision for me. She's like, are you crazy? You're coming back home to Lagos. Okay. So the next question was, okay, how are you going to get back? I was ready to come back by road, but I remember a friend of mine saying at the time, he worked in Virgin Nigeria, and he said, the Lord did not save you on Sunday to kill you on Wednesday. You will come back by air. And I say that's probably one of the singular decisions that actually cured me, or started to cure me of my fear of flying, because I had to get on a plane so quickly after. And so on Wednesday, I'm super excited to be coming back home. I'm just, in high spirits just to leave the hospital. And I get to the airport. The airport manager comes to see us, and he takes us on the tarmac to see the plane. And I start to weep. I am weeping. And the pilots, they try to reassure me, that they're going to do a great job and make us land safely. And so they asked me, do you want to sit in the cockpit with us? And I said, do I look like I'm crazy? I'll be at the back of the plane. You just drive us safely. And so for the 45 or 50-minute ride, I held on to my flatmate at the time, and I held on to a random stranger, and I was just weeping through the flight. At the end of the flight, the pilots say, we want to dedicate this flight to Esther Moda, one of the survivors of the ADC plane crash. And so the people on the plane said, oh, who is that? And they said, no wonder, because I'm sure up until then, they probably thought I was a village girl who had never been on a plane before, hence the tears, and there was clapping, there was rejoicing, people were trying to take my picture, trying to put money in my hand, telling me they're going to write books and all of that stuff, and it was just a surreal experience. Now, when people see the trajectory of my life now, they think that, of course, it makes sense that this is the kind of life you'll be living, one that is, bringing a message of hope and almost like serving and dedicated to God. But that was not the case. In fact, for 2 years after the plane crash, I had survivor's guilt. So I was depressed because I did not understand why God would give me such a phenomenal gift. I did not think that I deserved it. There were people that were more deserving on the plane. That was the same flight that the Sultan of Sokoto, his son and his grandson, died on. I knew deacons in my church and deaconesses, growing up, who were on that same flight and had died. In fact, there was a mother with 4 children who both her and the children died, and so I didn't really feel like I deserved this great gift that God had given to me. It wasn't until November 2008 where I got, my healing from the depression, and where God said to me that I've saved you for a life eternal, then you can accept the gift of me saving you in this life with all its wars and rumors of wars. But why am I sharing this story now? Over the last couple of months, in the last year, I have sensed that God has been calling me to serve my country. And it's that thought and the call actually gave me the most sorrow, because for me, I was like, how would you ask me to serve a country that literally tried to kill me? Because in the space of 18 months, there were 6 plane crashes, and nothing was done, either by the Minister of Transport at the time or anything to actually say, let us do an overhaul. Let us actually see what is going on. In fact, the minister at the time said he's not God, so why should they ask him why, why plane crashes were happening on his watch? But in the last 1 year, the Lord has said, I need to serve your country. If you know anything about what is happening in our nation right now, you know that we need hope more than anything else. You know that we need to be able to hold on to something to believe. And I stand here, or I sit here as a sign or as a beacon of hope, saying that if the Lord can save me in such a dramatic fashion, if he can make me a sign and a wonder, because if I did not tell you, if I don't tell you that I survived a plane crash, you would never know. But if the Lord can do such a phenomenal miracle for me, he can do it for our country. He can revive us, he can revamp us, he can make it such that we don't even look like what we've been through. We look and we compare ourselves with the stories of Dubai and the stories of Singapore, and we wonder how can these things be, or how shall these things be? But if we all play our part, if we all do what we are called to do, if we all live lives of integrity focused on righteousness and justice, we will have the nation that we are praying for. But it is no longer in the hands of government. It is now up to us as individuals to do the work that we have been called to do. Each and every single one of us can make a difference, and this is a plea for us to do just that. All of us cannot migrate. All of us cannot jackpot, as they say. We are here and we have a duty of care to leave Nigeria better for the next generation. I hope this is inspiring you to not just hear my testimony and thank God for my life, but to look inwards and say, as a Nigerian, could it be that I am called to be Nigerian for such a time as this? Thank you so much for listening, and God bless you.
Thank you so much for watching. At this time in our nation, hope is a precious commodity. We are riddled every day with stories that want to bring down our morale as a people. Standing for our nation, standing for hope is a hard thing. It's hard. It gets really hard. But listening to the different people speaking today, my hope has been revived. I am not alone. You are not alone. There are 7,000, literal and figurative, who have not bowed their knee to the idol of corruption and vainglory in this nation. We need to keep hope alive. Beyond keeping hope alive, we need to do our part. We need to do our part. We cannot do this alone. We cannot keep depending on the government to come to our rescue. We can't keep waiting for somebody else to do what they are meant to do. You are the somebody else. All of us cannot leave Nigeria. What will happen to our parents? What will happen to our family, our aunties, our uncles, our children? What are we leaving behind for this nation? Please. We have watched the 3 editions of the 7,000 conference, from the government edition to the church edition and now the business edition. The question now is, what next? Where do we go from here? I would like to encourage you to join the 7,000 community. I would like to tell you, please, partner with us. This is a lonely journey, but it does not have to be. I promised myself I would not cry. I promised myself that I would hold it together. But I cannot be the only one, and I'm not the only one fighting for Nigeria. It does not have to be a lonely journey if we all do our part. Nigeria needs us. Beyond looking for our individual blessings, how about we take up collective responsibility? It's time. It's time. It's time for us to awake. It's time for us to arise. It's time for us to leave Nigeria better than how we met it. No longer will our nation continue to eat its young. No longer will we eat our future seeds today. Enough is enough. If I, as an individual, can do this, if you can hear each of the individuals talking about how they are making Nigeria better in their own spheres, what is your excuse? Enough is enough. enough is enough. One day Canada will close their doors. What will you do then? Nigeria will be great again. I am doing my part. What about you? Thank you, and God bless you. Good night.